Chapter 198. Recalling the uses of the 7 major acupoints, Nian Bing couldn't help but guess which 3 acupoints Theron had opened and what stage he had reached. No matter what he had opened, he would be a threat to her. The Ice Goddess Priestess should have opened the Li Zhong and West Meridian acupoints. In addition to the Huangji acupoint on her right hand, her Li Zhong and West Meridian acupoints should have reached the middle stage. That was why Nian Bing concluded that she already had the strength of the 13th step, which was above the 7 Dragon King. Last time, when he scared off the Ice Goddess Priestess, it was just a bluff. If they really fought one-on-one, Nian Bing didn't have much confidence in winning. The Li Zhong and Xiantian acupoints were used to condense energy, so the Ice Goddess Priestess didn't hesitate to use the Li Zhong and Xiantian acupoints. Under the condition of using vitality, she could still use the 11th step forbidden spell without chanting. However, she definitely wouldn't be as relaxed as him. Unfortunately, in terms of the absolute power of magic, he was still 1 step behind her. The 12th step and the 13th step were 2 completely different concepts. Fortunately, he had a divine tool, which could reduce the gap and give him some chances of winning in a real battle. And this time, he had to deal with Theron. If his 3 acupoints had reached the middle stage, then no matter what they were, it would bring him a lot of trouble. It seemed that he still had to join forces with Halogen to destroy him. Gods shouldn't exist in this world. They were too strong, and they were all selfish people. Perhaps the best way to preserve the original state of Yangon was to destroy them one by one. Mu Jing saw that Nian Bing didn't speak for a long time and thought that he was worried about something. She couldn't help but ask, "Brother, is it really that hard to deal with a god with 3 acupoints? What are acupoints?" Nian Bing came back to his senses and said, "Acupoints are the bottlenecks that humans face when they reach the limit. The 7 major acupoints can be said to be 7 bottlenecks. If humans can completely open all 7 acupoints, maybe they can really become gods. Do you know why my strength increased so quickly? Unfortunately, the 3 acupoints I've opened are different from those of ordinary people, so I can't really use their abilities. If I can open any of the other 4 acupoints, then my abilities will definitely take a qualitative leap. Unfortunately, aperture acupoints could not be opened just because one wanted to. Jing, you have a unique advantage. Work hard on cultivating your nature magic. I believe that you will definitely be able to open your aperture points." Mu Jing nodded and said, "Both Theron and Zamulin have told me this before. If I can open a suitable acupuncture point, I can immediately advance to the Archmage realm. Zamulin originally promised me that after I gave my body to him, he would think of a way to help me open a suitable acupuncture point. It's just that I didn't have much trust in him, so I kept delaying it. I didn't expect him to die at your hands." Nian Bing snorted disdainfully and said, "Zamulin's cultivation method is very special. He hasn't even opened his aperture acupoints. How can he help you? He's just lying to you. If he really does get your body, who knows what he'll do to you?" The suitable acupoints he was talking about were the Li Zhong acupoint and the West Meridian acupoint. For us magicians, these 2 acupoints are extremely important. As long as you open one of them, you can indeed advance to the Archmage realm in a short time. Of the 7 major acupoints, there are 3 that are suitable for magicians and warriors. If you open an acupoint that is not suitable for you, although it will still be helpful, the help will be smaller. Comparatively speaking, opening acupoints is more effective for warriors. You must remember what I'm about to say. It will be very beneficial for you in your future cultivation. Of the 7 major acupoints, the Earth Emperor Extreme acupoint does not count. For us magicians, the most useful acupoints are the eye-opening, Li Zhong acupoint, and West Meridian acupoint. The eye-opening acupoint has the greatest effect, but even now, I haven't been able to completely grasp its rules. This is because every person who opens the eye-opening acupoint will have different effects. However, I can tell you this. The eye-opening acupoint can truly allow you to continuously improve your earth aperture. Not only can it allow you to distinguish the characteristics of all kinds of energy, but at the same time, it will also greatly increase your mental strength. When your mental strength increases, your ability to control magic will naturally increase as well. When one's magic cultivation reaches a certain level, mental strength will become the core of a magician's efforts. As for the Li Zhong acupoint and the West Meridian acupoint, they have the effect of condensing energy and congregating innate qi. The reason why I said that opening the 7 major acupoints is more effective for warriors is mainly because these 2 acupoints are also very beneficial for warriors. Perhaps I'm thinking too much. The 7 major acupoints should not be balanced. After all, the eye-opening acupoint's effect far surpasses that of the other acupoints. The acupoints that are more suitable for warriors are the discrimination acupoint, the listening cloud acupoint, the earth spirit acupoint, and the Fengjia acupoint, which can increase one's speed. What I'm saying here is only in a relative sense. In truth, opening any one of these acupoints is beneficial for us. Your future cultivation should begin to develop towards the 7 major acupoints. Otherwise, when you reach the Archmage realm, you will reach a bottleneck. If you don't open your acupoints, it will be very difficult to break through. After all, a freak like Zamulin is in the minority. His cultivation method can also reach the strongest. Mu Jing looked at Nian Bing with some gratitude. As a sorcerer, she naturally understood how great the benefits of receiving guidance from an expert at her realm were. Nian Bing's selfless guidance made her even more aware that he really did not have any intentions of using her. The feeling of closeness grew even stronger. Brother, I will definitely work hard. Working hard to cultivate will allow me to better protect myself. Nian Bing smiled slightly and rubbed Mu Jing's long hair. He smiled and said, "All right, Jing, I have to go back. Otherwise, I'm afraid that your sisters-in-law will be jealous. Instruct someone to take care of Theron's matter tonight. We will take care of him outside the city." Mu Jing sighed faintly and said, "My 3 sisters-in-law are really fortunate. Brother, how great would it have been if I could have known you a few years earlier." Nian Bing only smiled gently at Mu Jing and turned to leave her room, closing the door behind him. Nian Bing sighed in his heart. Tian Xiang had once told him that human nature was evil, while Cao had told him that human nature was good. Now, it seemed that he should have more faith in Cao. Everyone had their own story behind them. Who knew if those gods could change it? Habits formed over thousands of years might not be so easily changed. Moreover, with his own strength, it was impossible to change them. If he couldn't change them, then he could only destroy them. Killing one person to save 10,000 people, it was worth it. Nian Bing didn't return to his and Halogen's room. Instead, he went directly to Lan Shun and Long Ling's room. Because Yu Ruyan was traveling with them, the 3 of them were no longer squeezed in one room. Feng Nu and Yu Ruyan stayed together, while Lan Shun and Long Ling stayed together. During these 8 days of hurrying, Long Ling and the other 2 girls didn't know if it was because of Yu Ruyan or because of Luo Rose matter, but they still wanted to give Nian Bing a warning. They didn't have any intimacy with him. When they camped at night, they mostly stayed with Yu Ruyan because their godmother was there. Nian Bing also didn't want to express too much, so he could only let them be. However, as a normal man, it was definitely a painful thing to be with 3 beautiful women who were deeply in love with him every day. Just now, Nian Bing told Mu Jing that he was lying. How could he not be tempted? He hadn't touched Feng Nu and the others for 8 days. God knows how much willpower he had to resist the temptation of Mu Jing's with spirit body. After knocking on the door a few times, the door opened. Long Ling poked her head out of the door. When she saw that it was Nian Bing, she couldn't help but giggle and let him in. Nian Bing closed the door behind him and saw Lan Shun sitting on his bed. It seemed that he was chatting with Long Ling. Nian Bing couldn't help but ask with concern, "Aren't you tired from rushing all the way?" Lan Shun smiled and shook his head. "Tired? When you weren't here, we kept cultivating every day. Rushing all the way is nothing. Where did you go just now? Why did you disappear after eating so selfishly?" Nian Bing said, "I just want to talk to Mu Jing. I think it's better if we don't go to Maplewood City. The Feng people's matter can't be delayed. The earlier we arrive, the more we understand the situation, the more confident we will be. Moreover, to deal with a 13th order true god, if we attack in the city, we will definitely hurt the innocent. So I asked Mu Jing to lure him out of the city, and we will attack outside the city. Long Ling took the initiative to pull Nian Bing's big hand and let him sit down. She said, "You must be tired these days. Go back and rest early. Didn't you say that we have to rush all the way tomorrow morning?" Nian Bing said, "I really need to rest. Should I sleep on your bed or on Qinshin's floor? This problem needs to be carefully considered." Looking at the naughty smile on Nian Bing's face, Long Ling couldn't help but blush. "You're so hateful. Did you forget what Feng Nu's grandmother said? You can go and sleep on your own this time." Nian Bing hugged Long Ling and let her sit on his thighs, making full contact with her body. He immediately let out a long breath of comfort. Smelling the faint fragrance on Long Ling's body, he couldn't help but feel a little intoxicated. "No, I won't go. These days, I can't bear it anymore. With Mother here, I can't be too intimate with you too. In any case, Feng Nu and Mother live together. If you don't say anything, she won't know." Long Ling's face turned red. She was always gentle and soft-hearted. Feeling Nian Bing's warm embrace and looking at his pleading eyes, she couldn't refuse and looked at Lan Shan with an inquiring gaze. Lan Shan chuckled and said, "What? You want to take our Ling Er's first time here? That won't do. There must be a good place with a good environment. Otherwise, wouldn't our Ling Er be at a disadvantage? You should go back and sleep. If Big Sister or Mother comes and sees you, I want to see how you explain. I'm afraid Big Sister will give you a longer punishment." First, he was teased by Mu Jing. Then he hugged Long Ling's delicate body. Nian Bing's heart was already burning with a strong flame. He nodded and said, "Chun Shun, what you said is very reasonable. We can't just take our cute Ling in a hotel." After saying that, he couldn't help but sigh. He helped Ling stand up. Looking at his appearance, Long Ling couldn't bear it and gently pulled on his sleeve. She had already determined that Nian Bing was the only man in her life. Although her virginity was the most precious thing, she had to give it to him sooner or later. Why should she make him feel uncomfortable? Nian Bing pulled Long Ling's small hand and kissed her white fingers. Long Ling couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Nian Bing's eyes flashed, and he picked up Long Ling and placed her on the bed. When Long Ling's heartbeat quickened and she thought Nian Bing was going to do something, Nian Bing had already pulled the blanket over her. "Silly girl, sleep well. Although you can't walk, I must find a good place for your first time to leave you the best memory." As he said that, he raised his hand and a faint green light flashed. The lights in the room were immediately extinguished. Following that, Lan Chen's low cry of surprise was heard. After the lights were extinguished, Nian Bing immediately floated onto Lan Chen's bed and hugged her delicate body. He moved his head close to her cold ear and gently kissed it. In a low voice, he said, "Since you don't want Ling Er's first time to disappear, then my dear Chun Shun, tonight you can accompany me. I understand that you said that just now because you want me to accompany you. How can I have the heart to refuse?" "Hateful, that's not it." Woo! Without waiting for her to refute, her cold lips were kissed by Nian Bing. Long Ling couldn't help but secretly laugh. She thought to herself, "Chun Shun, this time you've gotten yourself into trouble." Chun Shin's selfish panting sounds are so heavy. What exactly was Nian Bing doing? Long Ling's heart warmed slightly, and she pulled the blanket. In this dark room, she wanted to use her eyes to look, but the shyness in her heart prevented her from doing so. She hurriedly turned over and had her back to Nian Bing and Lan Shan. However, Lan Chen's deliberately suppressed moans still made her heart beat faster. Nian Bing hugged Lan Shan and burrowed into the bed. Lan Chen's cold body gradually melted in his warm embrace. In order to prevent her from rejecting him, Nian Bing kissed her lips. This was also the main reason why Long Ling heard Bing Yun's heavy panting. Nian Bing didn't move too much. He hugged Chun Shun and his hands wandered around her back, tightly pressing her body against his. Although Lan Shun and Nian Bing had sex once, that was still a year and a half ago. Suddenly suffering such a fierce attack, she immediately panted. If Long Ling could see her eyes right now, she would definitely find that Lan Chen's eyes, which were usually clear and beautiful, were now like silk. Her white skin exuded a seductive pink color. Nian Bing moved away from Lan Chen's lips and kissed her delicate face. He kissed her eyes, her eyebrows, and her swan-like slender, beautiful neck. Every kiss would make Lan Chen's body tremble slightly. Her hands, which were initially pushing Nian Bing's chest, had already slid to his back. While panting, she felt this wonderful feeling. Her body and mind gradually opened up in front of her beloved man. Nian Bing's movements suddenly stopped. He used his forehead to press against Lan Chen's forehead and asked softly, "Chun Chun, can I?" Although he was eager to release his desire in front of his lover, he still respected their wishes. If they were not willing, even if he endured bitterly, Nian Bing would not force them. The temperature in the quilt rose a lot. Under the warm quilt, Lan Chun felt her body was abnormally hot. She softly hummed to express her attitude. At this time, how could she refuse Nian Bing? But what made her heart full of shyness was that there was still Long Ling beside her. Wouldn't she be able to hear what he and Nian Bing were doing? However, it was also because of this reason that her heart also had a strong, strange feeling, because Long Ling was beside her. Her body became even hotter. She was waiting for Nian Bing's real attack. After getting Lan Chen's response, Nian Bing no longer had any scruples. The clothes on the two people's bodies quickly decreased. After a while, Nian Bing finally felt that smooth and lustrous body again. His hands trembled a little, and his body became abnormally hot. The breath of life outside, the Li Zhong acupoint, was constantly surging. They were still as choppy as the first time, but the feeling was completely different from the first time. At that time, they were venting in the desire ignited by the drug. But this time, they were releasing in each other's deep love. In the comfortable room, the feeling of spring gradually rose. The suppressed moans in Lan Chen's room gradually became louder. When their bodies finally joined together, the slight cries of pain accompanied by satisfied moans suddenly rose to the extreme. In each other's deep love, the passion gradually pushed to the peak. At this time, the most depressed person was not Long Ling, who was eavesdropping at the side, but Oscar, whose spiritual power was completely sealed the moment Nian Bing went to bed. Nian Bing and Lan Chen's first time appeared under his witness. However, at that time, he only saw the foreplay before his spiritual power was sealed by Nian Bing. This time, he only knew what Nian Bing wanted to do. Man had already lost his perception of the outside world. He could clearly feel that Nian Bing's breath of life was constantly rising, and her blood was flowing faster. It seemed to be pushing towards an end point. The night was quiet, but it was not calm. When the light of dawn gradually shone on Rosewood City, another morning came. Annoying, I don't need you to help me. Lan Chen fiercely rolled her eyes at Nian Bing, and her beautiful face flushed red. Her steps were a little unsteady as she walked out the door. Nian Bing hurriedly went up to support her with a satisfied expression and said in a low voice, "I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that you're too tempting. Moreover, you're the one who asked for it." Chun Chun, who looked cold on the outside, had a fiery heart. After tasting the forbidden fruit, the two of them made love from night to dawn. Of course, Long Ling also did not sleep. At this time, her gentle and beautiful eyes were emitting a tired expression. Although Lan Shan was no longer a virgin, she had only done it with Nian Bing once before. It would be strange if she could adapt to this kind of all-night punitive expedition. Her lower body constantly emitted a strange feeling, causing her to walk unnaturally. Nian Bing turned to look at Long Ling and said, "Linger, are you okay? Looking at you, it seems like you didn't rest well." Long Ling unhappily glared at him and said with dissatisfaction, "You're still pretending to be obedient after taking advantage of me. You guys did that for a night. It would be strange if I could sleep. Annoying. I'm going to take a shower first." The moist feeling from her lower body made her face blush. She got off the bed, gave Nian Bing a hard pinch, and rushed to the bathroom. Lan Shan opened the door and poked her head out to look outside. She couldn't help but shrink back. The Longlu Empire's diplomatic group had already woken up and were packing up. She couldn't help but feel anxious. How could she go out and meet people like this? She turned to look at Nianbing, but saw him counting her fingers. She didn't know what he was doing, so she couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with you?" Nianbing laughed mischievously and said in a low voice, "I'm counting how many times we did it last night, and it seems to be 5 times. No, there was another time when I was taking a shower, so it should be 6 times. You're going to die." Lan Chun ignored the discomfort in her lower body. She took 2 steps in front of Nianbing and grabbed his ear. "Lower your voice. Do you want everyone to hear?" Nianbing cried out in pain and said, "Be gentler. My good wife, it's my fault, okay? Fortunately, I have 3 wives. Otherwise, I really can't bear to do this to you every night." Lan Chun rolled her eyes at him, but didn't refute. After a night of conquest, her body was sore, but he still looked so lively. She was afraid that she couldn't satisfy his desires alone. "Bad Nianbing, how do you want me to meet people like this? If sister and mother see this, I don't want to live anymore." Nianbing held her face and kissed her gently and said with a smile, "This is easy to solve. Since we can't walk, we'll just fly. You can fly directly to the car. Who can see anything? It's strange. Even if you're a little injured, I used magic to treat people. Why haven't you recovered your ability to walk?" Looking at Lan Chen's unkind eyes, he didn't dare to say the rest of the words. The sound of water splashing came from the bathroom. Long Ling had already started to take a bath. Lan Chen couldn't help but chuckle. Last night, Ling turned the world upside down. "I'm afraid this girl has also been moved." Nianbing hugged Lan Chen and sat down, letting her sit on his lap. He held her chest with one hand, put his face on her face, and said softly, "Chun Chun." Lan Chen held Nianbing's mischievous hand from the outside and said in a bad mood, "What?" She was surprised to find that her body had only been touched by Nianbing, and she immediately felt something. She couldn't help but think in her heart, "When did I become so sensitive? Am I still the Bingyun of the past?" In fact, she didn't know that because Nianbing had fused with Cao and absorbed such a large amount of life energy, his life aura had already reached the peak. The most primitive chapter of life was the desire between men and women. Ever since Nianbing returned, his body was invisibly emitting life aura, which naturally attracted the attention of the surrounding women. This was also one of the reasons why Mu Jing wanted to throw herself into his arms. After Lan Chun fused with him, her life aura and Nianbing's life aura communicated. Because Nianbing's life aura was too large, it had a great attraction to her life aura. This was also why she would have many orgasms when fusing with Nianbing. She couldn't get tired of it. Although her body was very tired now, the essence of Nianbing's life was constantly changing her life energy and also changing her body. Nianbing held Lan Chen's small hand and said, "I'm sorry, I was too impatient last night. Don't blame me, okay? For more than a year, I've missed you guys too much. Last night, I also wanted to control myself, afraid that I would hurt you, but the love and desire in my heart for you guys made me unable to control myself. That's why it was like this. Next time, I'll be careful and cherish you even more, okay?" Hearing Nianbing admit his mistake, Lan Chen couldn't help but feel warm in her heart. She hugged his neck, kissed him lightly on the lips, and said, "Okay, how can I blame you? Actually, isn't it the same for me?" There was a sudden knock on the door. Lan Chen hurriedly got up from Nianbing's lap. Nianbing knew that it was inconvenient for her to walk, so she had to bite the bullet and walk up to open the door. But the person who came was not as she imagined. It was not Yu Ruyan, nor was it Feng Nu. It was the little sister she had just recognized last night, Mu Jing. Mu Jing saw that the one who opened the door was Nianbing and didn't feel strange. She chuckled and said, "Brother, we should go." Nianbing's face turned red and said, "How did you know I was here?" "Linger is taking a bath. We'll come out after she finishes." Mu Jing said in a low voice, "It was sister-in-law Feng Nu who told me." "Brother, you're really good. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone." Nianbing looked at her, stunned. He didn't think that Mu Jing would say such words. He knew that it was useless for him to explain anything now. He could only bitterly smile and said, "Okay, you go first. We'll come out." Mu Jing chuckled and said, "Okay, will wait for you outside. Once again embarking on the journey, sitting in the carriage, Nian Bing was once again interrogated by the three departments. It wasn't because he sneaked into Lan Shun and Long Ling's room last night, but because Mu Jing called a brother. Nian Bing explained to them about Mu Jing's life and thoughts. It was not easy to struggle out of the three women's questions. What made him feel strange was that of course Nian Bing knew that Feng Nu and Yu Ruyan lived next door. Lan Shen's moans were getting louder and louder. There was no reason for them not to hear it. But since Feng Nu didn't ask, he was also happy to be free. Naturally, he also pretended not to know. With the help of Nian Bing's wind magic, Lan Shen flew directly to the carriage. He sat in the carriage for a full day before he recovered. On the way, Mu Jing told Nian Bing that she had already sent people to Maplewood City last night. Using Zamulin's injury as an excuse, she tricked Nian Bing to meet up with them. According to the time, they would meet at most tomorrow morning. When night fell, because the diplomatic mission had rushed at full speed for the whole day, they couldn't find a place to stay. They could only sleep in the wilderness. The carriage could accommodate 8 people, but if they slept, it could only accommodate 4. Nian Bing and Halogen naturally gave the carriage to Yu Ruyan and Lan Shun. The two of them, along with the rest of the diplomatic mission, stayed by the bonfire to keep warm. As they traveled north, the temperature dropped. Although it didn't affect Nian Bing and Halogen much, the cold wind didn't feel very comfortable. Nian Bing, I really envy you, Halogen mumbled as he stuffed the last piece of meat into his mouth. With the help of the longevity saber, his figure looked even more imposing than Nian Bing's. Nian Bing smiled faintly. Envious that I was born in Yangon, or that I have 3 close female friends. Actually, brother Halogen, with your character and strength, you'll definitely find a girl suitable for you. Halogen shook his head. No, I definitely won't find a human to be my wife. How could you humans like us dwarfs? The envy I'm talking about is your family and friendship, right? Did you know? I've lived for so long, and you're my only friend. Although I'm still sad because of my mother's death, I can't help but admit that my mother's choice was right. It was only after I left that I realized how little I had seen in the past. In the time that I spent with you in Yangon, I learned more than I did in the past hundreds of years. Nian Bing, thank you. Nian Bing patted Halogen's shoulder. Let me think about it. Right now, it's really hard for me to decide whether to help you return Lost Continent. After all, this matter involves too many people. Halogen smiled faintly. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be troubled. I've already decided on this matter, and it's something I have to do. But you don't have to do this. After all, you don't belong to Lost Continent. Nian Bing said, I'm actually very conflicted in my heart. Brother Jinluan, I'm the same as you. I hate those gods. Regardless of whether they're right or wrong, I can't stand the selfishness and despicableness that I've seen. However, God's continent is still sealed. Our world is still in peace. I don't want to break this peace. If Lost Continent returns, the impact on Yangon can be predicted. After so many years, who knows what Lost Continent has become? We still have some time. Let me think about it. Halogen was just about to say something when suddenly a long whistle came from afar. The whistle was loud and sharp, arrogant and overbearing. Nian Bing's face slightly changed. 30 miles away. A whistle that came from 30 miles away could actually be heard. Without asking, he already knew who it was. But he didn't expect him to come so quickly. He and Halogen looked at each other, and the two stood up at the same time. Mu Jing jumped down from her carriage. Standing about 10 feet away from Nian Bing and Halogen, she nodded to them. Feng Nu, Long Ling, Lan Shun, and Yu Ruyan also got down one after another. Nian Bing and Halogen flashed in front of them. Nian Bing said, Brother Halogen and I will deal with this god. Mom, you guys stand guard at the side. If that guy wants to escape, you must stop him. Nian Bing had no choice but to be fully prepared because he didn't know which 3 acupuncture points this celestial Theron had unlocked. Otherwise, if Theron had unlocked the Earth Spirit Cave and he insisted on escaping, it would be very difficult to stop him. Chapter 199. Mu Jing ran in front of Nian Bing and said, Brother, let me help you. Nian Bing shook his head and said, No, If a 13th Order Master counterattacks before death, it will be very powerful. You stay here. Brother Halogen, let's go and meet them." As he said that, he and Halogen leapt up at the same time. With 2 leaps, they disappeared from everyone's sight. Urian nodded to Lan Shun and the other 2 girls. 2 blue and 2 red lights appeared on their bodies at the same time and flew in 4 different directions. When Mu Jing and her delegation could no longer see their figures, except for Long Ling, Yu Ruyin and the others released their royal feathers. Yu Ruyin rushed north. Feng Nu and Lan Chen flew to the east and west respectively. Long Ling stayed in the south, which was closest to the delegation. They understood Nian Bing's meaning. This was a killing array. Nian Bing and Halogen came to a stop on a spacious plain. With a yellow light, the longevity blade separated from Halogen and returned to Nian Bing's hand. A 7-colored light was released from Nian Bing's Tian Yin acupoint. Under his control, his psychic power fanned out to the north. Soon, he could clearly feel a person coming towards him at an astonishing speed. This time, Nian Bing decided to use another method to deal with this god. The 7-colored light shone at the same time. With Emperor Kurobutsu as the leader, 7 shadow puppets appeared at the same time. Carrying 7 divine blades, they hid in the dark night sky. Using his psychic power, he felt that the person was getting closer and closer to them. Nian Bing nodded to Halogen. Halogen's god-slaying axe was already in his hand. Because he was wearing a black dwarven armor, it was not obvious in the night. Black fighting aura shone around his body. His whole body actually slowly sank into the ground. For a moment, only Nian Bing was left in the empty space. The fiery red light was particularly conspicuous in the night, bouncing on the ground like a shooting star. From Nian Bing's discovery to his arrival in front of Nian Bing, only a few breaths of time had passed. He retracted his psychic power. Nian Bing's body emitted a 7-colored brilliance at the same time, which immediately attracted the fiery red figure's attention. With a light sound of surprise, the fiery red figure stopped 300 feet away from Nian Bing. Although it was night and the figure's body was surrounded by fiery red fighting aura, Nian Bing could still clearly see his appearance. This person was wearing a dark red armor. The armor looked very arrogant. The 2 huge breastplates in front of the chest were made of an unknown red gemstone. The shoulder plates were very wide and extended a foot from both sides of the shoulders. The belly plate below the breastplate looked like fish scales. Obviously, in order to not affect the flexibility, this dark red armor was inlaid with a diamond-shaped gemstone. This gemstone was also red, but it looked more sparkling than the 2 big rubies on the breastplate. The whole armor was like a burning flame. Although Nian Bing did not know much about armor, she could still see that this armor was extraordinary. She couldn't help but secretly praise in her heart. There were indeed a lot of ores on the godly mainland. She didn't know how this armor was made. At this moment, Halogen's anxious voice sounded in Nian Bing's ears. "Brother, we must seize this armor. This is one of the 12 divine artifacts forged by our dwarf race. It is called the Fire Cloud Armor. Not only does it have an extremely strong defensive power, but it also has an extremely high enhancement effect on fire-attributed Do Qi. Its greatest feature is its ability to shrink. With a slight modification, it can adapt to any body shape." Nian Bing didn't answer Halogen. Her gaze moved from the armor to the face of the person who came. He looked like he was in his 30s. His face was very long, and his small eyes narrowed into a line. He was also sizing up Nian Bing. The most distinctive feature was his aquiline nose. The nose bone bulged forward, looking very sinister. "Who are you? Are you sent by Mu Jing to welcome me? Why haven't I seen you before?" The person looked at Nian Bing with a bit of doubt. Hearing his question, Nian Bing knew that she definitely found the right person. She smiled indifferently and said, "Although you don't know me, I know you. You should be called Theron." "How dare you?" Theron snorted coldly. The surrounding temperature obviously rose a bit. "You dare to call me by my name? That's enough for you to die 10 times. Are you Mu Jing's subordinate?" Nian Bing shook her head and said, "Of course not. However, I am indeed here to wait for you. Not to mention you, Even a master gods of the godly mainland wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. The seven-colored radiance instantly turned golden, and a huge pressure filled the air. Theron was stunned and took a step back. His expression changed slightly. Extreme Emperor Acupoint. Nian Bing smiled and said, "At least you have some knowledge. Your good brother Zamulin has already gone to hell to wait for you. Now, you can go with him." The pressure instantly increased, and the seven-colored figure lit up around Theron. 7 divine sabers carried the condensed energy of the 7 attributes and attacked Theron from different directions. Dozens of dark red palm shadows burst out from Theron at the same time. The dark red aura seemed to burn the air, creating ripples like water. The 7 shadow puppets retreated immediately after the attack and didn't come into contact with the dark red palm shadows. When the palm shadows disappeared, the 7 shadow puppets rushed forward again. The sharp aura brought by the 7-colored light seemed to have materialized and went straight for the vital parts of Theron's body. Theron snorted and waved his hands to form an airtight barrier around his body. If there were only 7 shadow puppets, apart from Emperor Kurobutsu who could threaten him, the other shadow puppets wouldn't be able to break his protective dochi even if he didn't defend himself. However, the 7 divine sabers in the 7 shadow puppets' hands made him have to be on guard. As a god who had lived for thousands of years, he naturally saw the power of the 7 divine sabers. He treasured his fire cloud armor very much and was afraid that it would be damaged by the divine sabers. Among the shadow puppets, only Emperor Kurobutsu could release an attack that exceeded the 12th level. The other 6 shadow puppets, even with the divine sabers, could only release an attack of the 10th level at most. Facing the 13th level Theron, they were stuck in a stalemate for a while. Nian Bing had communicated with Emperor Kurobutsu before. In the Lake of Death, due to the nourishment of a large amount of death energy, Emperor Kurobutsu's soul had completely recovered. However, because he had lost his physical body, it was very difficult for him to return to his peak state. Therefore, he could only maintain an attack of the 12th level. Emperor Kurobutsu also told him that. He and Emperor Kurobutsu practiced a special technique that was suitable for energy bodies. Under the effect of the demon-devouring saber, it would take a certain amount of time for them to achieve a breakthrough. At this time, facing a powerful enemy, Emperor Kurobutsu's battle intent was getting stronger and stronger. Every attack of the demon-devouring saber would take a lot of Theron's energy. Theron was already at the 13th level, and with the help of the fire cloud armor, he was able to become a god. Although he couldn't be compared with a master god, he was still one of the master god candidates on the godly mainland. His strength wasn't below that of Aeolus, who had defeated the sacred teacher. This time, he was one of the 3 leaders who came to the Yangon continent. This was something that Nian Bing didn't expect. Although the 7 shadow puppets' combined attacks were powerful, it was extremely difficult to hurt him. If it wasn't because he was more afraid of Nian Bing's existence, and because he could only use 90% of his strength under the pressure released by Nian Bing, the shadow puppets probably wouldn't be able to stop him. Nian Bing's spiritual power was completely connected with her shadow puppets. Through the shadow puppets' attacks, she quickly analyzed Theron's strength. It was obvious that Theron wasn't using his full strength now. His strength was obviously much stronger than that of Zamulin. Although Zamulin was close to the 13th level, he hadn't truly reached the 13th level. Even if it was Halogen, in a one-on-one situation, he would still be injured. Even if it was a one-on-one fight, he would still be able to destroy Zamulin. Not to mention the earth fire cloud armor he was wearing, just the fighting aura condensed to the point where it was almost solid with every palm strike made Ling Nian Bing greatly astonished. This was because although he used his fighting aura to attack, the loss of fighting aura was extremely small. In a situation where he didn't come into contact with the shadow puppets, he could actually withdraw his fighting aura and reduce the consumption to the minimum. Now, Nian Bing was almost certain that this god in front of her had definitely opened the Li Zhong acupoint and had at least reached the middle stage. With this judgment, the golden light emitted from Nian Bing's body suddenly retracted. A seven-colored light condensed between her eyebrows and shot in a straight line towards Theron's location. Theron was startled. Just as he was about to move, he saw the seven-colored light suddenly spread out, turning into a huge light screen that enveloped a radius of 100 feet around him. The originally relaxed feeling from the disappearance of the pressure suddenly increased. His earth fire-fighting aura actually weakened a bit in that instant. The speed of the seven shadow puppets that had been harassing him suddenly doubled, and the light on the seven divine swords became even more dazzling. This immediately made Theron nervous. He couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. He shifted his domain to the Tian Yin acupoint. A feeling of horror filled his heart, and his hand couldn't help but weaken a bit. The devil-devouring saber in Emperor Kurobutsu's hand cut through the defense of the armor, leaving a shallow mark on the fire cloud armor. Theron was very clear about what the Huangji acupoint and Tian Yin acupoint represented. The anger in his heart instantly subsided, and his eyes flickered. He waved his right hand, and a flaming long saber instantly appeared in his hand. It circled around his body, and the dark red light instantly forced the seven shadow puppets to retreat. He held the saber with both hands and slashed towards the shadow puppets. Emperor Kurobutsu's actual combat experience was definitely no less than Theron's. No matter if it was in the past or now, he would never retreat when facing an enemy. The devil-devouring saber released a black light as it brazenly met Theron's attack. The collision of the battle auras brought about a sharp whistling sound. Emperor Kurobutsu let out a muffled groan as his body was sent flying more than 30 meters away with the devil-devouring saber. His originally solid body suddenly became somewhat illusory. However, Theron didn't have it easy either. Because he attacked Emperor Kurobutsu with all his strength, his body was instantly slashed by the other 6 divine sabers. His protective battle aura could only weaken the attack by 60%. With the help of the 6 divine sabers, Theron's body emitted a layer of milky white brilliance. As the brilliance flickered, the 6 shadow puppets were pushed back. However, Theron's body also staggered a little. 6 different types of magical elements intertwined with each other and invaded his body. If it wasn't for the fire cloud armor filtering most of the attacks, Theron would have been injured. However, the combination of the 6 types of magic elements and the dark element for the shadow marionette slash had put a huge burden on him. For a moment, Theron had no choice but to gather all of his combat aura to fight against the magic elements, trying to force them out of his body. Nian Bing roared into the sky and shouted, "Oscar!" His slender body leaped high into the air as a loud dragon roar sounded. Gray light spots condensed under Nian Bing. When his body reached the highest point, the gray light spots that condensed in the air suddenly revealed their true form. When Nian Bing's body reached the highest point, the gray light spots that condensed in the air suddenly revealed their true form. A gray dragon that was 70 meters long appeared and carried Nian Bing into the sky. The gray dragon had a layer of golden luster on its body, and the gray scales on its body expanded as it roared. The gray dragon's body was similar to that of a normal dragon, but there was only a single horn that was about 5 meters long on its head. The horn was dark gold in color. Where Nian Bing was standing, his body seemed to be connected with the dragon. The clothes on his body disappeared, and a layer of gray scales that were the same as the dragon's grew on his skin. It was as if he was a part of the dragon. Spells of the 7 elements rained down from the sky like hailstones. There was only one target, Theron. A strange scene occurred. Those spells that were only at the 6th and 7th grade would immediately increase in power by 1 grade after entering the 7-colored light barrier. Due to the large number of spells, Theron was caught off guard. Although these magic elements didn't really hurt his body, they formed a connection with the magic elements that invaded his body. It seemed to be a connection that came from the innate energy causing the 7 types of magic elements that were about to be expelled to wreak havoc in his body. Theron cried out in surprise, "Dragon Magician!" The fear in his heart grew even stronger. He waved the flaming saber in his hand, creating countless afterimages that dissolved the spells that were descending from the sky. Thinking back to what Nian Bing said about Zamulin going to hell, Theron didn't want to fight anymore. After all, what was more important than his own life? Just as Theron had to deal with the spells that were descending from the sky, as well as the magical elements in his body, a black shadow silently leapt up from behind him. Wherever he leapt, the soil around him disappeared. The black combat aura became the best cover in the silent night. When Theron realized the danger behind him, the huge black battle axe was only 3 meters away from his body. In this crisis, Theron displayed the battle experience that he had accumulated for thousands of years. A red halo burst out from his body, instantly dissolving the spells that were descending from the sky. The flaming saber in his hand drew an arc in the air from the left, forcing the 7 shadow puppets to retreat at the same time. When the flaming saber drew an arc from the left to the right, Theron used the strength of his waist to drive the saber in his hand. The power accumulated to a peak state in an instant, and he slammed it against Halogen's battle axe. At this moment, he couldn't care less about controlling the magical elements that were exploding from his body. Oscar, who was in the air, flapped his wings and flew high into the sky after Nian Bing's warning. Immediately after, a white dot appeared below him. The dot of light instantly enlarged, and a huge rumbling sound, along with shock waves and dirt, spread to every corner within a radius of 5 meters in the blink of an eye. The dazzling white light was actually the spark of the collision. If it wasn't for Nian Bing's heavenly eye, she might have temporarily lost her vision under the effect of the white light. The surging light flashed, and the violent energy waves that came from below made him feel like he was back in the land of gods. Halogen's body was sent flying at a faster speed than when he came. However, how could his close to level 13 power be weak when combined with the super divine weapon, the god-slaying axe, be weak? Nian Bing's 7 shadow puppets instantly turned into 7 streaks of light and disappeared in the air after receiving the message from his spiritual energy. This was all thanks to the ability of the spatial shadow puppet, which instantly teleported the 7 streaks of light and the 7 swords into the air, preventing them from being caught in the crossfire. When Halogen's body fell to the ground, he had already lost control of his body. Wrapped in the dim black light, his body was rubbed on the ground for about 30 meters. At this moment, the dwarf mystic armor played a crucial role in protecting his strong body from external injuries. However, when Halogen's body stopped at the end of the ravine, he opened his mouth and spat out a rain of blood. Compared to Halogen, Theron was in an even worse state. The flaming long sword that he used wasn't formed by the condensation of battle chi. Instead, it was a special or that could release raging flames. At this moment, the raging flame long sword that he regarded as his most valuable treasure had already turned into bits and pieces that scattered in the distance, emitting tiny flames. Theron's body was at least half of its original size. Below his waist, he had completely sunk into the ground. With him as the center, the surrounding soil had completely turned into scorched earth. The cracks on the ground that had sunk 30 meters into the ground spread far away. Fresh blood flowed out from his mouth. The fire cloud armor was indeed a divine weapon made by the dwarves. There wasn't any damage on the surface. However, even a super divine weapon like the dwarf mystic armor couldn't completely neutralize the shock waves caused by the collision of energy, let alone the fire cloud armor. Under Shu Luan's full power attack, the headband on Theron's head had already been sent flying dozens of zhang away. His long black hair draped over his shoulders, making him look like a ghost. His originally bronze face had turned white. Looking carefully, Theron's face had turned white. Not only was blood gushing out from his mouth, but it was also seeping out from his 7 orifices. He couldn't even lift his right hand anymore. His chest was heaving up and down as if he was gasping for breath. His slender eyes flashed with a fierce light, but anyone could tell that he was just putting on a brave front. His body had already suffered serious internal injuries. Faint rainbow-colored radiance constantly flowed out from his pale face. He couldn't even force out the 7 magic elements from his body, and they even appeared on his skin. It was obvious that he was in a terrible state. Nian Bing rode on Oscar and floated in midair without moving. Of course, he knew how lucky he was to be able to land that attack. If he hadn't attracted Master Siluan's attention and used his Sky's I Domain and Earth Puppet to injure Master Siluan, he wouldn't have been able to escape. She was afraid that Halogen's attack wouldn't have had such an effect. A level 13 true god was indeed powerful, let alone one who had opened the West Meridian, Fongjia, and Lijiang acupoints. When she saw the milky white radiance on Theron's body for the first time, Nian Bing had already determined which acupoint he had opened. The milky white defensive energy was obviously from the Fongjia acupoint, and the prerequisite for the Fongjia acupoint was to have the West Meridian. However, what Nian Bing didn't expect was that, under the effect of her Sky Eye realm, which had cut off Theron's connection with the Xiantian Qi in the outside world, his Fongjia acupoint could still display such a powerful defensive ability. As for the Lijiang acupoint, which Theron used to condense energy, he couldn't hold back anymore because of Halogen's combined attack. What Nian Bing was paying attention to now was the faint red radiance on Theron's body. As a level 13 true god, Theron was far beyond Zamulin's reach. Nian Bing could faintly feel that Theron wouldn't die so easily. Therefore, she was waiting for Theron to change, and also waiting for Halogen to catch his breath. In terms of the strength of her attacks, Nian Bing knew that she couldn't compare to Halogen. Without Halogen's attack power, even if she could trap Theron with her own strength, she wouldn't be able to inflict any fatal injuries on him. Oscar let out a low roar. Golden gray energy surrounded his body. His current body was completely condensed from energy. When Oscar's Dragon God's Heart Sutra broke through to the 5th level, he was already able to do this, with energy as his body and his soul as support. Although he wasn't a true giant dragon, his strength definitely wouldn't be inferior to ordinary dragons. Furthermore, he had a unique condition, which was the supreme energy attribute. Halogen stood up shakily from the gully, and a trace of praise appeared in his eyes. He admired Theron's strength and wished that his ancestor had suffered a great loss in the hands of a true god. Just this true god expert alone was enough to make him, who had 2 supra-divine artifacts, have a hard time dealing with him. If there was another opponent with the same strength as Theron, he and Nian Bing wouldn't be able to destroy the opponent, but would have to escape first. 2 against 1, after all, wasn't something to be proud of. However, for his own wish and for the sake of his ancestor, he had to make this choice. Theron's breathing gradually became softer. His eyes were focused on Halogen. The fire cloud armor's radiance was much dimmer than before. After all, no matter how powerful a divine artifact was, it still required the owner's strength to activate it. Dwarf! I didn't expect to see a dwarf here. His sharp voice sounded very calm, which didn't match his appearance at all. Maluan snorted coldly and strode towards Theron with firm steps. We dwarves are always born to pursue our beliefs. You gods can come to this beautiful continent. Why can't we dwarves do the same? Theron, accept your fate. At least 30% of your meridians have been broken by my battle chi. You don't have any chance left. Theron smiled strangely and looked up at Nian Bing in the sky. That's right. This is indeed a very good trap. For a single wood crystal, I now believe that Zamulin has indeed died at your hands. Unfortunately, I'm not him. What do you think? Do you think I won't die even if 30% of my meridians are broken? If so, you have underestimated us true gods. As he spoke, he suddenly slapped his hand. It wasn't slapping towards Halogen or Nian Bing in the sky. Instead, it was slapping towards his lower abdomen with a ball of dark red light. Nian Bing flew in the sky because she had a good judgment of the situation. For martial artists like Theron and Halogen, it didn't mean that they didn't have the ability to fly. However, using battle chi to fly consumed a lot of essence energy. Therefore, martial artists wouldn't use it unless they had no other choice. A magician's flying speed with magic was indeed inferior to a martial artist's. However, Nian Bing wasn't just a magician. Just like what Theron exclaimed earlier. When Oscar awakened, he was already a dragon magician. No matter how fast a person could fly with battle chi, They couldn't be compared to the overlords of the sky. Therefore, when Yin Bing, who was sitting on Oscar's back, ascended into the sky, she was already in an invincible position. The red light instantly flashed, and Yin Bing's heart suddenly tightened. He finally understood what Theron was trying to do. The place he slapped was the West Meridian Acupoint, one of the 7 major acupoints in the human body. The red flames burned again, but this time there was an additional golden luster in the red. The flames burned more intensely than before, and the area covered by the battle chi suddenly doubled. The entire set of fire cloud armor became as transparent as a gem. Not only halogen on the ground, but even Yin Bing in the sky was illuminated by this sun-like light. Be careful, big brother halogen. This guy is crazy. He destroyed his own West Meridian Acupoint. Destroying an acupoint could also be called an acupoint explosion. Once an acupoint was destroyed, the damage to the human body was irreparable. Not only would essence chi leak out along with the damaged acupoints, but once an acupoint was damaged, it couldn't be healed. When an acupoint exploded, it would be impossible to open another acupoint. In serious cases, it could even lead to death. However, an acupoint explosion could also bring great benefits. Just like Yin Bing's life cursing technique, it was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst, but the effect was great. By using one's own essence chi as the price and using one's own body as the foundation, one could cause an acupoint explosion that had been open to the middle stage and above to instantly gain twice the power of that acupoint. In other words, now that Theron's West Meridian Acupoint exploded, he could gain twice the power of the West Meridian Acupoint in the ultimate realm. Although the duration wasn't very long, the power it brought was absolutely destructive. Halogen stopped moving forward, but the fighting spirit in his eyes didn't weaken at all. He slowly raised the god-slaying axe with both hands, and a line of golden words appeared on the black axe. Babatu. A strange incantation sounded out from his mouth, and Ma Lu's body began to change. His originally robust body suddenly increased in size, and even his height was taller than before. The black short-handled battle axe in the intense black light turned into a huge battle axe that was 3 zhang long. The handle of the battle axe was as thick as an arm, and the surface of the battle axe was as wide as a door. The black blade of the battle axe was emitting a layer of dark blue luster. Ma Lu's eyes instantly turned white, and a black stream of air like a whirlpool rapidly revolved around his body. It was as if Theron didn't see what was happening to Halogen's body. The sudden destruction of his West Meridian Acupoint caused dozens of blood vessels in his body to burst, and an enormous amount of Xiantian chi crazily rushed out from his body. The Sky Eye domain that Yin Bing released earlier had already disappeared in the last clash between Theron and Halogen. Even if the Sky Eye domain still existed, it wouldn't be able to stop such a crazy amount of Xiantian chi. Yin Bing coldly snorted, and the 7 divine blades appeared once again. However, this time, there were no 7 shadow puppets accompanying them. Due to the previous explosion of energy, the blade souls of the 7 divine blades had been damaged to a certain extent. Yin Bing could only rely on himself now. Theron's craziness and Halogen's mutation stimulated Yin Bing's battle intent to surge. Under the effect of the 7 divine blades, the 7 elements in the air continuously gathered around his body, and the 7-colored light gradually became brighter. Yin Bing stretched out his hands and grabbed the sai of the snow goddess, Morning Dew Blade, and the roar of the fire god, Righteous Yang Blade, respectively. The 2 blades drew a triangle in front of him at lightning speed, and a hexagram of ice and fire immediately appeared in front of him. The 5 divine blades of Ku Ming began to revolve around Yin Bing's body. On his chest, a layer of soft green light appeared. His azure blue eyes instantly turned golden, and Yin Bing's body completely entered into battle mode. A god, a dwarf, and an ordinary human. The power of the 3 of them was increasing crazily. Under the effect of the monstrous energy, the cracks on the ground were expanding, and deep trenches gradually appeared. The ground seemed to be shaking, and all the energy in the surroundings surged along with it. The fiery red light around Theron's body kept rising, and he was floating in the air, surrounded by the fiery red light. His messy black hair turned into green smoke and disappeared. His right hand was still on his lower abdomen, and the fire cloud armor that was emitting a red light that was even brighter than the gem on his headband. His fire-attributed combat chi was still at level 13, but the fire elements in the air under the effect of the innate chi formed a circle of dazzling light around his body. At the cost of destroying his acupuncture points, he had already obtained the sound he wanted. The fire cloud armor made creaking sounds, and it seemed like it would explode at any time due to Theron's bulging muscles. The almost transparent armor was stimulated by the surging fire elements in the surroundings, and it released a power that was stronger than ever before. Blasphemy will only lead to destruction. Theron's voice became abnormally gloomy. He stared coldly at Halogen in front of him and clasped his hands in front of his chest. A golden red flame rose from his hands, and a long blade made completely of flames appeared in front of him. He waved the long blade in his hand lightly, and the soil on the ground turned into green smoke, leaving a bottomless trace. Chapter 200. At this moment, Nian Bing had a strange idea in her mind. Siluan had sacrificed his West Meridian acupoint in exchange for a huge amount of Xiantian Qi. His cultivation ability was of the fire attribute. Therefore, his battle chi was able to attract a huge amount of fire elements under the effect of the Xiantian Qi. Judging from the heat emitted from his saber, it should be far beyond the level of the heaven fire. Then, how would this golden red flame compare to the phoenix fire that the Feng people might encounter at the upcoming ceremony? Halogen moved. His ability had been raised to the limit by the simple, wordless incantation. As a super divine artifact, the dwarf divine armor was obviously superior to the fire cloud armor. Although his body had expanded a lot, the dwarf divine armor had also grown along with his body. It still completely covered his body. Raising the giant battle axe high up, Halogen stomped hard on the ground. Instantly, a huge pit that was 30 meters wide and 30 meters deep appeared. His body was sent high up into the sky like a cannonball. The battle axe swung in a circle in the air. The black surface of the axe carried a streak of battle chi that was 15 meters long. The light on the blade of the axe instantly expanded. A plane appeared in front of Nian Bing's eyes. At the end of the plane, there was a streak of light formed by countless streaks of light. When Halogen's body rose to the highest point in the sky, Nian Bing heard 3 words from his mouth. Slaying, God, slaying. The moment Halogen leaped into the sky, Siluan also moved. His body carried a flame-like illusion and suddenly rose up, leaving behind a gorgeous golden red flame in the sky. He suddenly faced Halogen's attack. Opportunities were always left to those who were prepared. Nian Bing naturally wouldn't let go of the opportunity in front of her. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Halogen's ability, but she really didn't want her simple and honest big brother to suffer any harm. The ice snow goddess dragon almost appeared in the path that Siluan had to pass through when he rose up into the sky. Nian Bing instantly cast a forbidden spell. Compared to the first time she cast it, she was now much more relaxed. The golden red flames rushed through the body of the snow goddess dragon without stopping. The rank 11 forbidden spell disappeared in an instant, not even leaving behind ice powder. However, what awaited him wasn't just this forbidden spell. Nian Bing's eyes had turned golden. In a short period of time, with the help of the 7 super divine tools, he condensed 5 more forbidden spells. They were of the earth, wind, space, darkness, and light attributes. These 5 forbidden spells required a tremendous amount of energy, especially the final light and darkness spells. When Theron passed through the first few forbidden spells, they had already collided with each other, and the energy they released was several times stronger than before. This attack had already reached the level of a rank 12 God's Descent spell. In other words, the explosion of the 2 extremes of light and darkness had already surpassed the level of a rank 12 God's Descent spell. This was also one of the strongest spells that Nian Bing could release at this stage. If it wasn't for the fact that Theron's fire energy was too great, Nian Bing would definitely have chosen to combine the fire and ice forbidden spells of the same origin. Unfortunately, the fire energy that Theron obtained after destroying his West Meridian point was just too great. It was so great that Nian Bing couldn't absorb enough magic energy to create a forbidden spell even with the righteous Yang Blade. Therefore, there were only 6 forbidden spells in total. If Theron was still the same as before, these 6 forbidden spells might not have been able to kill him, but it would have been possible to heavily injure him. However, after activating his West Meridian point, his strength had reached a monstrous level. Even he himself didn't know how strong he was. However, the 6 forbidden spells only slowed down his body for a moment, and the golden red light around him dimmed a little. It didn't stop his momentum from soaring into the sky. Halogen's divinity, slaying Slash, had arrived. Whether it was Nian Bing or Halogen, they all believed that this was a sure kill attack for Theron. No matter how strong Theron was after activating his West Meridian point, he couldn't block the 6 forbidden spells and then fight against Halogen's all-out attack. However, reality was often different for what they imagined. Just as Halogen's battle axe was about to hit Theron, Theron suddenly changed. A silver crystal appeared in front of him and met Halogen's battle axe head-on. The crystal shattered almost instantly. At this moment, Theron, who seemed to be unstoppable, suddenly disappeared. When the golden red light reappeared, he was already 1,500 feet away. Halogen couldn't possibly retract his full-powered attack. Not only did he lock onto Theron when he launched this attack, he didn't hold back at all. When Theron's body suddenly disappeared, he already felt that something was wrong. However, he still didn't hold back. Nian Bing didn't stop either. When she realized that Theron had disappeared, she immediately communicated with Oscar. Theron couldn't be allowed to escape. If he escaped, he would definitely attract the attention of the other gods. He might even attract the hatred and revenge of the other gods. Therefore, he had to die. Oscar flapped his wings forcefully and charged forward with Nian Bing in tow. He was like a phantom as he chased after Theron. At this moment, the divinity, slaying Slash, had already reached the ground. Nian Bing felt a little strange as he hurriedly chased after Theron. Given Shu Luan's immense energy, the sound of him striking the ground should have been unimaginable. However, he still didn't hear any booming sound from behind him even after he had chased after Shu Luan for over 10,000 feet and was gradually closing the distance between him and Theron. At this moment, he couldn't care less. Killing Theron was the most important thing right now. Lan Shun was in charge of guarding the direction Theron had fled in. Every single one of the female guards had clearly heard the battle between Nian Bing and the other two. They could also feel the enormous energy waves. They were all very nervous. Judging from the intensity of the energy waves, they knew that Nian Bing's opponent wasn't going to be easy to deal with. Lightly flapping the Ice Phoenix feathers on her back, Frozen Cloud floated there, quietly waiting. In her hand was the Ice God's staff that the Ice Goddess Priestess had passed down to her. When she saw a golden red dot of light in the distance approaching her at a speed hard to see with the naked eye, she didn't hesitate to chant an incantation. At the same time, she launched her Ice Goddess domain. The originally calm night sky instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. After Nian Bing had opened her Heaven's Eye Meridian and trained hard for more than a year, Bing Yun's Ice Goddess domain had matured. She instantly released her Ice Goddess domain, and it was much stronger than when she fought against Nian Bing. The area it covered was more than 100 times larger than before. Large snowflakes fell from the sky, and the biting cold wind swirled the snowflakes in the air. The cold feeling made Bing Yun feel very comfortable. Since she was already prepared, the spell she had been charging up for a long time was quickly completed. Among the ice element forbidden spells, the one that was the easiest to control and had the most power was naturally the Ice Goddess Dragon that appeared in the hands of the Ice Goddess Priest and Nian Bing. This spell could be said to be the most cost-effective among all ice element spells. Therefore, when ice element mages reached the level of Archmage, they would definitely choose to use this spell whenever they wanted to use a forbidden spell. The golden red light kept expanding. Through her heaven's eye meridian, Bing Yun could clearly see the appearance of the person approaching. At the same time, she could clearly see that behind the golden red light, Nian Bing was chasing after him with Oscar. They were getting closer and closer to the light. Bing Yun definitely didn't underestimate Theron. Even Yin Bing and Halogen together couldn't stop such a powerful existence. How could she have the confidence to fight against him? She had thought it through very clearly. What she needed to do was to delay this person for a while. As long as she could hold on for a few breaths of time, it would be enough for Nian Bing to catch up. Therefore, she used one of the ice element spells she was most proficient in, Ice Goddess Dragon. Under the effect of the Ice Goddess domain, the power of the Ice Goddess Dragon increased by a lot. The world of ice and snow was filled with snow, concealing the low roar of the Ice Goddess Dragon. Theron could be considered unlucky. If he had chosen the other three directions, he wouldn't have expected such strong resistance. Longling's spells were definitely weaker, and she didn't have an innate domain of her own. Even if ice magic could counter fire, it wouldn't be much of a threat to Theron. As for Yu Rian and Feng Nu, who were also of the fire element, although they were strong, after Theron destroyed his West Meridian, if he encountered them, not only would they have a hard time resisting Theron, he might even absorb a lot of fire energy to replenish himself. Unfortunately, Theron chose the west, the direction Bing Yun was guarding. What welcomed him was the Ice Goddess Dragon that soared up from the Ice Goddess domain. Theron's current situation wasn't as good as he appeared to be. The 6 forbidden spells that Nian Bing released with all her might seemed to be extremely powerful, but only he knew that more than half of the fire elements around his body that he had painstakingly absorbed had been used up after blocking the 6 forbidden spells. His body had already been severely injured by Lin Luan's previous attack. Although he had used the destruction of his West Meridian to increase his strength, the consumption of his body had increased exponentially. Every second that passed, the elemental energy in his body would be drained a little more, and his injuries would worsen a little more. What's more, he didn't manage to completely dodge Lin Luan's Divinity Slayer. As one of Lin Luan's most powerful attacks, the Divinity Slayer might have been deflected by him using a precious space teleportation crystal, but the destructive force produced in that instant had already caused him to suffer a huge injury. His entire arm was broken, and even his fire cloud armor had been shattered into pieces. He had to rely on the condensation of the fire elements around his body to not lose this arm. When he felt that the cold in front of him was causing the battle energy around his body to fluctuate violently, he couldn't help but feel a little desperate. He never expected that there would be an ambush even with the cooperation of Nian Bing and Halogen. As long as this ambush was as strong as they were, he wouldn't stand a chance. In the face of a life-threatening crisis, Theron had no other choice. In order to survive, he could only make a final struggle. With Theron's body as the center, the fiery red wheel of light rapidly expanded to the surroundings. Every time it expanded, Frozen Cloud's Ice Goddess domain would shrink a little. The surrounding cold was dispelled by the scorching heat. At this moment, Theron unreservedly released the energy that erupted from his West Meridian. Lan Chun floated in midair, and the wings on her back flapped gently. She didn't panic at all. Since the enemy was able to break through Nian Bing and Halogen's attacks, he naturally wouldn't be weak. From the beginning, she didn't expect to be stronger than the enemy. Therefore, the moment Theron came into contact with her Ice Goddess domain, the surrounding snowflakes mixed with large amounts of icicles flew up, and the ever-changing ice scene appeared in front of Theron. Although these illusions couldn't harm or confuse him, they slowed down his progress. At this moment, Nian Bing was still 300 feet away from Theron, but the dark forbidden spell, Death God's Scythe, that Nian Bing released, had already appeared behind him in silence. With a pincer attack from the front and back, at least on the surface, Theron was completely in a passive position. No matter who it was, they would only have one chance to activate their acupuncture points in their lifetime. Once they activated one of their acupuncture points, not only would it be difficult for them to make any progress in their cultivation in the future, they wouldn't be able to activate their other acupuncture points either. Theron naturally had his reasons for choosing to activate his West Meridian. If he had chosen to activate his Li Zhong acupuncture point, then even if he managed to escape, he probably wouldn't even have 30% of his strength left. Although activating his West Meridian would only allow him to recover up to 50% of his strength, the Xiantian Qi condensed by the West Meridian could instantly increase his strength to the maximum. An ear-piercing shriek came from Theron's mouth. His body instantly accelerated, and the milky white brilliance behind his back rose to the limit. Due to the support of the enormous amount of Xiantian Qi from the West Meridian acupuncture point, although he was already heavily injured, the Fangjia acupuncture point connected to the West Meridian acupuncture point still erupted with the ultimate defensive power. The Death God's scythe clashed against the milky white brilliance without any cost. But the result was that Theron's charging speed increased by a bit. Theron's body also trembled violently. The true ultimate defensive Fangjia acupuncture point naturally couldn't be damaged by a forbidden spell of the 11th step. However, the energy in Theron's body was rapidly depleting. Under the great damage to his vitality, his Fangjia acupuncture point could only protect his body this once. When Lan Shan first started learning magic from the Ice Goddess Priestess, the Ice Goddess Priestess had once taught him that when casting magic, one had to find the best opportunity. Only then could the magic display its best effect. Lan Shan had never forgotten his master's guidance. Therefore, the moment Zilin Fang's Jia acupoint clashed with Nian Bing's Grim Reaper's scythe, the Ice Goddess dragon that was hidden within the Ice Goddess domain appeared. A resonant dragon roar accompanied by a breath of ice and snow instantly covered Theron's body. Under the violent impact, Theron spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the moment he was blocked by the Ice Goddess domain, he had to be careful at all times. And this Ice Goddess dragon appeared when he was at his weakest. Theron's eyes turned red. For the sake of his last chance of survival, he chose to fight with his life on the line. The fiery red brilliance surrounding his body instantly condensed into a huge flaming blade 5 zhang long. At this moment, Theron's body was completely defenseless. The Xiantian Qi from the West Meridian acupuncture point instantly condensed. Without any hesitation, he swung the flaming blade in his hand. In order to avoid being injured by the Xiantian Qi, the flaming blade flew out of his hand with all his strength. Nian Bing saw that Theron was fighting with his life on the line and immediately became anxious. At this moment, the gray breath that Oscar had just spat out was still 300 zhang away from Theron. There was clearly no time left. Right now, he could only hope that Lan Shan's strength was enough to hold on until he arrived. Hidden within the Ice Goddess domain, not only did the ice and snow not become an obstacle for Lan Shan, but it was also her eyes. Through the ice and snow, she could clearly sense everything around her. The instant that flame blade appeared, Frozen Cloud understood that it was something that her Ice Goddess dragon couldn't block. So, she used her fastest speed to make the change. Phoenix, Shadow, 3, split. Bing Yun's originally materialized body suddenly changed, whether it was the wings behind her back or her body. At this moment, everything became illusory. 3 figures appeared at the same time. Her blue eyes instantly turned golden, and the blue wings behind her also emitted a layer of golden light. What did the heavens' eye acupuncture point bring to the foam people? What it brought was the ability to instantly achieve any of the 9 Phoenix transformations that one could achieve while skipping the process in the middle. The 4th transformation, Phoenix Shadow, appeared in 3 parts, causing the aura around Bing Yun's body to immediately surge. The surrounding ice and snow instantly froze. Her body disappeared from the Ice Goddess domain in an instant. Boom! Under Theron's combined attack, the Ice Goddess dragon and the Ice Goddess domain were completely turned into ice powder that filled the sky. In the next moment, they were instantly vaporized by the scorching air. Theron's body shot out from the surrounding water vapor like a cannonball. He used the last of his energy to escape into the distance. Because of his sudden increase in speed, Oscar's breath attack behind him had already reached his heart. Although Oscar's speed had increased to the limit, He couldn't catch up to Theron, who had sacrificed his West Meridian acupoint to condense Xiantian Qi in a short period of time, unless his West Meridian acupoint couldn't continue erupting. However, just as Theron's body felt light, and he felt that he had escaped, a cold voice sounded in his ears. Phoenix, Phoenix, wings, 5, colors, motion. Dazzling 5-colored light appeared not far in front of him. The 3 flickering 5-colored light, almost illusory figures, silently floated in midair. A huge mirror appeared in front of the 3 figures. In the mirror, Theron could only see himself. The surrounding air seemed to have frozen, and his body became abnormally slow. Although all of this was relative, he could only watch as he crashed into the mirror. The deep chanting of incantations didn't stop when the 3 5-colored figures appeared. The 3 figures were chanting different incantations at the same time. If one listened carefully, the incantations they were chanting were so seamless that the 3 voices didn't seem to stop at all. At this moment, the huge mirror had already become Theron's nightmare. Pure maiden of ice, the one who understands the principle of surging waves, the beautiful empress, the azure pole of ice. My great ally, follow the sacred contract of blood. The beginning of my bloodline is the beginning, and the end of my bloodline is the end. Respond to my summons and freeze all the enemies in front of me. The world of ice appears in the eternal world. Forbidden, eternal crack, frozen wave. The 3 figures were chanting incantations at the same time, but the chanting time was only 1/3 of the original. As for Bingyun, she had been cultivating ice magic since she was a child. Her chanting speed was much faster than that of ordinary magicians. Under the influence of her Ice Phoenix bloodline, a forbidden spell only took her 3 breaths of time to complete. The Fire Cloud Armor. Theron felt the energy from the West Meridian rapidly decreasing, and the fire elements around his body were gradually disappearing. He knew that the only thing he could rely on now was the Fire Cloud Armor on his body. His forward momentum didn't change, but his body quickly twisted and shrunk out of the Fire Cloud Armor like a snake shedding its skin. Go! The Fire Cloud Armor rushed towards the huge mirror like a meteorite, while Theron's body followed behind the mirror and rushed over like lightning. He had already used the last of his trump cards. Just as the Fire Cloud Armor was about to hit the huge mirror, something strange happened. The huge mirror suddenly stopped reflecting light, and a blue light with a diameter of 15 feet shot out. The light shone brightly and instantly engulfed the Fire Cloud Armor in front of it. At the same time, it hit Theron, who was wrapped in the protective energy emitted by the Fongjia acupoint. With Lan Shen's strength, the density of 2 forbidden incantations shouldn't be able to be so fast. However, with the addition of the 5th Phoenix transformation, her speed of condensing and releasing magic elements greatly increased. At this moment, it was as if 3 archmages were attacking Theron at the same time, and Lan Shan was in control of the situation. Ice was the natural enemy of fire. Compared to the Ice Snow Goddess Dragon, Lan Shan's Ice Forbidden incantation was much stronger, but it was much weaker in terms of flexibility and control. However, Theron didn't have any more space crystals that could allow him to teleport. After being exhausted by so many masters, he couldn't use his powerful fire element fighting spirit to launch an effective attack against Lan Shan. Without Theron's control, the Fire Cloud Armor might be a divine artifact, but couldn't display its full power at this moment. It fell to the ground while being frozen. That changing blue light pillar only paused for a moment before it accurately hit Theron's body. Theron screamed in horror as his body fell from the sky. The last defense of the Fongjia acupoint collapsed instantly. The Xiantian Qi that the West Meridian acupoint absorbed had also reached its limit. The ice elements in the air disappeared, and Lan Shen's face was a little pale. Her Ice Snow Goddess domain was broken, and she used the Foam People's 5th transformation to forcefully launch a forbidden incantation. Her body had almost reached its limit. The 3 figures merged back into one, and the ice wings on her back spread out. Controlling her body to float in the air, she watched as Theron's body fell to the ground. At this moment, Nian Bing was about 100 feet away from the place where Theron and Lan Shan were fighting. At this moment, Theron, who was falling from the sky, displayed a tenacious vitality like a cockroach. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the ice world that sealed his body after breaking the defense of the Feng Jia acupoint shattered instantly. His falling body suddenly slowed down, and a ball-shaped red crystal appeared in his hand. A scorching aura was emitted from the crystal. It wrapped around his body. Theron, who was full of vitality, absorbed the energy provided by the crystal with all his might. His falling body suddenly tilted and rushed towards Lan Shan, who had revealed her original appearance in the air. His speed was so fast that it seemed to be even faster than before. At the same time, the red crystal in his hand turned into fine powder and scattered in the air, fusing with the flames that reappeared around his body. Lan Shan originally thought that Theron had lost his ability to resist. Moreover, casting 2 forbidden incantations in a row had put a burden on her body, so she was absorbing the ice elements in the air to recover. But now that Theron suddenly rushed towards her, she didn't have any good way to block him. She barely managed to condense a large amount of ice cones and threw them towards Theron. After all, she wasn't Yinbing. Without the support of an incantation, she couldn't use powerful magic. Theron clearly saw this point. The ice cones melted into water in the fire battle chi and floated down from his body. In the instant before Yinbing arrived, he had already arrived behind Lan Shan. The scorching light of the flames enveloped him and Lan Shan. He no longer had the ability to fly. He grabbed Lan Shan's shoulder with one hand and grabbed her throat with the other. With the wings on Lan Shan's back, he barely managed to stop himself from falling. At this moment, Theron's eyes were filled with an ominous glint. He watched as Nian Bing, who was riding on Oscar's back, quickly approached him. Nian Bing was originally overjoyed when he saw Theron being shot down by Lan Shan's forbidden incantation, but the sudden change made his excitement turn into fear. If Theron was most afraid of death, then Nian Bing was most afraid of his loved ones and friends being hurt. He hurriedly sent a message to Oscar. The huge golden-gray dragon wings spread out. After a short moment of standing upright and slowing down, Oscar stopped 30 meters away from Lan Shan and Theron. Nian Bing looked at Theron coldly and said in a deep voice, "Let her go." He would rather let Theron leave alive than see his beloved wife get hurt. Theron was gasping for breath. Theron was wearing the red armor. Other than the fire cloud armor, he was also wearing a red warrior's robe. At this moment, the robe had become extremely tattered. Fresh blood was seeping out of his 7 orifices. The face that was revealed from behind Bing Yun's back looked extremely ferocious. Although he was almost at the end of his life, it wasn't easy for him to kill Bing Yun, who was under his control. Apart from the ferocious glint in his eyes, there was only intense hatred. He had been forced into such a state by Nian Bing and the others, and his thousands of years of cultivation had been greatly damaged. How could he not feel hatred? Even if he could leave this place alive, it would be difficult for him to even reach the demigod level, let alone recover his god-tier strength. Without the West Meridian acupoint, the Fengjia acupoint was equivalent to being paralyzed. Intense pain was constantly coming from his lower abdomen. Everything in front of him became a little hazy. "Let her go. Kid, are you dreaming? Not bad at all. You could drag such a beauty down with you before you die." Theron's cold voice was heard. He tightened his grip on Lan Shan's throat. Lan Shan's face instantly turned pale. The demonic energy in her body had been temporarily sealed when Theron grabbed her throat. She was completely in a state of being robbed. She kept giving Nian Bing looks, telling him not to worry about her and to kill Theron first. However, how could Nian Bing not be afraid of her life? Killing Theron was important, but Lan Shan's life was more important. "Let her go, and I'll let you go. I won't stop you." Nian Bing flipped his trump card. In fact, it wasn't just Theron who was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Nian Bing wasn't in a good state either. Previously, he had released his domain and 6 forbidden spells consecutively. Although most of them were triggered by his powerful spiritual force, it was still a huge burden on him. The demonic energy in his body had been greatly weakened, and his spiritual force had also been depleted. After all, magic was different from battle aura. Even a god-tier magician would find it difficult to release 6 forbidden spells in an instant. If Nian Bing hadn't opened the Huangji acupoint in his Tianyin acupoint, the situation would have been much better. However, his current situation wasn't optimistic, especially after releasing the Grim Reaper's scythe. "Let me go. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? Why should I believe you? I'm afraid that as soon as I let her go, your attack will arrive." Theron looked at Nian Bing with a mocking gaze. As a selfish, god-tier magician, in his mind, no one could be trusted. Chapter 201. However, after hearing Nian Bing's words, Theron understood the importance of the beauty in his hands to this powerful magus. He saw a glimmer of hope and loosened his grip on Lan Chen's throat. He said coldly, "Girl, use your wings to take me away. Do you hear me? Hurry up. Kid, if you dare to chase after me, I'll take her down with me." Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a little flustered. If Lan Chen was taken away by Theron, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, if she didn't agree, Theron would probably kill her Chun Chen immediately. Just as Nian Bing was hesitating, he suddenly saw the silver between Lan Chen's eyebrows. Hope reignited in his heart, and he immediately thought of an idea. "All right, Theron, I'll let Chin Chin take you away. However, you have to promise me that you won't hurt her. Otherwise, I won't let you go even if I have to chase you all the way to the continent of gods." Nian Bing's voice was stern, and she glared at Theron as if she wanted to eat him alive. Theron's heart relaxed a lot when he saw her like this. Nian Bing's fierce appearance clearly told him that he had made the right choice. Unfortunately, Theron was behind Lan Chen. He couldn't see the silver between Lan Chen's eyebrows, which represented the Heaven's Eye acupoint. It dyed Lan Chen's eyes silver as well. The wings on Lan Chen's back unfolded and flapped as he flew towards the west. Just when Theron thought that he had succeeded and relaxed a little, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his brain, as if his brain was being pricked by a needle. He loosened his grip on Lan Chen's neck and shoulder. Lan Chen's body flickered like a phantom. In the blink of an eye, he was already more than 10 feet away. Seeing Theron's body falling down, countless icicles shot out. Nian Bing's movements were faster than Lan Chen's. The moment her body separated from Theron's, several corrosive black shadows shot out like lightning. Theron's body instantly disintegrated in midair, and his limbs emitted a layer of dark green light. It melted quickly with a popping sound, and when the icicle arrived, it was already melting. When the icicles reached him, they only hit a pair of green liquid. The 13th level Theron was finally destroyed. Nian Bing's body flashed. He hugged her tightly, as if he was afraid that she would disappear immediately. Lan Chen could clearly feel Nian Bing's intense heartbeat. She hugged him back. Although it was just a short moment, it felt like a century to them. As it turned out, when Nian Bing saw the Heaven's Eye acupoint between Lan Chen's eyebrows, she immediately thought of a mental attack. Under normal circumstances, Lan Chen's Heaven's Eye acupoint, a mental attack wouldn't cause any damage to Theron. Instead, the one who would be injured would be Lan Chen. However, the situation just now was different. After receiving the full force attack from Nian Bing, Halogen, and Lan Chen, Theron was already extremely weak. He barely managed to threaten Nian Bing and Lan Chen by relying on his will to survive. Lan Chen's Heaven's Eye acupoint naturally couldn't achieve a physical mental attack, but mental attacks were still possible. Nian Bing threatened Theron sternly. Through his soul transmission, he had taught Lan Chen how to use his mental attack. That was how he had managed to break free from Theron's control in one fell swoop, causing him to perish under Nian Bing's rank 9 dark corrosive spell. Nian Bing gently stroked Lan Chen's dark green hair, comforting him. "Good boy, it's all right now. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. It's all my fault. I didn't stop him and almost harmed you." Lan Chen laughed. "It's not me who's afraid. It's you who's afraid. This guy's really powerful. He could still counterattack after receiving 2 of my forbidden spells. No wonder you're so afraid of the gods." Nian Bing sighed softly and said, "This Theron is only a second-rate godly being. There are others who are stronger than him. Let's go back and take a look." He dodged Halogen's attack just now and landed on the ground. "I don't know how he is now." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the fire shadow puppet soul of the Zhengyang saber floated out. The fire elements melted the ice outside the fire cloud armor, and the fire shadow puppet transformed into Theron's size. After putting on the fire cloud armor, Nian Bing brought Lanshan back to Oscar's back and flew back in the direction they came from. At the same time, in order to not be naked when the scales on his body disappeared, he didn't merge with Oscar's body. Instead, he removed the protection of the scales and put on a new set of clothes. Only then did he let Oscar carry him and bring him back. When Nian Bing and Lanshan returned to the place where he and Halogen fought with Theron, Feng Nu, Yu Ruyan, and Long Ling had already rushed over. Even Mu Jing had arrived with her experts. Halogen was sitting on the ground, gasping for breath. Except for Halogen, everyone else was stunned by what happened on the ground. What Nian Bing saw was a huge canyon. Through her Heaven's Eye acupoint, she could tell that the canyon was about 15 feet wide and 300 feet deep. It stretched for thousands of feet. There was no dust, and the pitch-black canyon was like a huge mouth that swallowed everything in its path. The Divinity Slayer. Halogen's Divinity Slayer was actually so powerful. Mu Jing was the most shocked because she was very familiar with the geography of this place. On the surface, it looked like a fertile plain. However, below 100 feet underground, it was made up of all kinds of hard and complicated rocks. Halogen had already returned to his original dwarf appearance. Mu Jing didn't recognize him, but this unbelievable scene shocked her deeply. Was this something that could be done by human strength? She felt lucky. If it wasn't for Nian Bing's suggestion, this huge canyon would have appeared in the capital of the Lang Mu Empire, Maplewood City. It would have been more than just panic. However, even such a powerful attack hadn't been able to destroy Theron. The terrifying power of the gods was deeply imprinted in Mu Jing's mind. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of lingering fear for her past actions. Nian Bing appeared on Oscar's back. Mu Jing and her subordinates were also greatly shocked. What was that? A huge gray dragon? That definitely wasn't something that an ordinary earth dragon could compare to. That was a real dragon. Everyone's jaws dropped as they watched Nian Bing and Lan Chun descend on the huge dragon like gods. After all, the scene before their eyes was far too shocking. With a flicker of gray light, Oscar's soul returned to Nian Bing's body, while Nian Bing landed beside Halogen. A gentle white light enveloped Halogen's body, healing his wounds. What a powerful divinity slayer! Nian Bing was also shocked when she saw the canyon in front of her. She knew that if the Divinity Slayer had struck Theron with his West Meridian acupoint activated, it would have been hard to say whether he would have been able to keep his life, let alone escape. This was the first time Nian Bing had seen Halogen's sudden burst of tyrannical power. He could faintly sense that this attack had already surpassed the 13th step. Under the effect of Nian Bing's light magic, the Divinity Slayer's body was completely destroyed. Si Luan raised his mouth and stood up shakily. His dwarf divine armor shook slightly, shaking off the dust on his body. He asked what happened to that guy. Nian Bing said, "He's already been killed. I didn't think that a 13th step god would be able to cause us so much trouble. This Theron is much stronger than I imagined. If he hadn't been so determined to escape, we would have been able to kill him. If he hadn't escaped, he would have been heavily injured by us. Even if we had killed him, we would have been seriously injured." His judgment was correct. At their level, the battle intent in one's heart could play a decisive role in a battle. Theron had been suppressed by Nian Bing's mental pressure from the moment he appeared. He had overestimated Nian Bing's strength. Due to the fear in his heart, he hadn't been able to display his full strength. Even so, he had still caused so much trouble for Nian Bing and Halogen. In the end, he had almost escaped by using Lanshan as a hostage. After this battle, Nian Bing couldn't help but reevaluate the strength of gods. Theron had already been eliminated, and Halogen was safe. Nian Bing couldn't help but feel relieved. Her body swayed slightly. Lan Shen hurriedly supported her. Nian Bing shook her head. Don't worry, I'm fine. I just consumed a bit of energy. Jing, I have already done what I promised you. When you go back, you have to watch your subordinates' mouths. Don't leak out the fact that a god once came to your Lang Mu empire and attract other gods. Mu Jing walked a few steps to Nian Bing and asked with concern, Brother, are you all right? I didn't expect this Theron to be so powerful. Go back and rest for a while. Nian Bing nodded and said, Big brother Halogen, this fire cloud armor belonged to your race. Now, it has returned to its rightful owner. The fire shadow puppet came to Halogen. With a flash of light, it disappeared into Nian Bing's body. The slightly damaged fire cloud armor appeared in front of Halogen. Halogen stroked the scalding armor. His eyes were a little moist. He recalled the story of his ancestors creating 12 divine artifacts. Now that he had gotten this armor back, it proved that the legend was true. He took a deep look at Nian Bing. There was no need for thanks between brothers. With a wave of his hand, the black crystal on the chest of the dwarf divine armor lit up and kept the fire cloud armor. Everyone returned to the campsite. At this moment, the members of the Lang Mu Empire's diplomatic mission looked at Nian Bing and Halogen differently. There was fear and respect. Although they killed Theron, Nian Bing and Halogen were exhausted. Once they returned to the campsite, Feng Nu and the others helped them into the carriage and began to cultivate to recover. Feng Nu and the others stood guard outside the carriage for them. Lan Shen briefly explained the process of killing Theron. Yu Ruyan, Feng Nu and the others were shocked. Although Nian Bing had mentioned the gods to Yu Ruyan, this time she truly understood the power of the gods. At the same time, she also understood why Nian Bing wanted to maintain peace in the Four Nations Conference. Sitting cross-legged in the carriage, Nian Bing's light ball, which was formed by magic power, was rotating rapidly. It absorbed all kinds of magic elements in the air to replenish itself. The life ball and death ball in his body were the purest Xiantian Qi. Although he couldn't use the Li Zhong acupoint, the speed of condensing magic elements was much faster than ordinary magicians. The magic power that he lost was quickly replenished. At the same time, the golden ball formed by the fusion of his Tian Yin acupoint and Huangji acupoint consumed his spiritual power very quickly. However, the recovery speed was also very fast. The feeling of weakness disappeared 2 hours after he started cultivating. Although Nian Bing had been cultivating every day for the past few days, he obviously didn't spend as much time as he did on the godly continent because there were too many things to do. However, he realized that the Xiantian Qi on the Yangon continent was much more abundant than on the godly continent. It was also much gentler. After absorbing it into his body, he only needed to go through a simple filtering process. After his spiritual power gradually recovered, Nian Bing was surprised to find that the Xiantian Qi in his body was a bit strange. Ever since he had the death ball and the life ball, whenever he absorbed Xiantian Qi, it would condense around the life ball and form a faint white halo. It was like the life ball was protecting the death ball. Because Nian Bing had the life ball, it was very easy for him to communicate with the magic elements in the outside world. So these days, Nian Bing didn't purposely try to cultivate Xiantian Qi. At this time, the Xiantian Qi in his body was gradually increasing. It actually left the life ball's range and formed a small white whirlpool. It was spinning rapidly 3 inches below the life ball. Nian Bing could clearly feel that after this white whirlpool appeared, the top of his head and tailbone became very cool. The Xiantian Qi that had almost solidified and compressed Xiantian Qi entered his body from these 2 places. His cultivation speed was much faster than usual. Just when he didn't understand what was going on, the white whirlpool began to move downward, and the whirlpool itself was spinning faster and faster. Nian Bing didn't even need to try to control it. The Xiantian Qi in his body was already abnormally abundant. The green life ball emitted a layer of life energy that fused with the white whirlpool. The green light turned into a green dot and shot directly into the center of the whirlpool. After it entered, the white whirlpool stopped for a moment. Then its spinning speed suddenly increased by 3 times, and the top of his head and tailbone became even colder. At this moment, Nian Bing suddenly understood. He thought back to the time when he absorbed the essence of the stars and moon. The pure Xiantian Qi coming from the top of his head and tailbone should be the essence of heaven and earth. Looking at the direction the whirlpool was going, he was overjoyed. He immediately opened up his body and threw away all his worries, allowing his body to absorb the Xiantian Qi better. 3 inches below his belly button was the destination of the whirlpool, and that was also the location of the West Meridian Point. Actually, the death ball and life ball that Nian Bing absorbed on the godly continent were the most powerful energy of heaven and earth. They were also the two most extreme types of energy. Either one of them was far stronger than the ultimate West Meridian Point. However, because these two types of energy were too powerful, Nian Bing couldn't really use them at all. Under the combined efforts of Cao and Tian Xiang, these two extremely concentrated energy balls could be said to be the seeds that they planted in Nian Bing's body. Life and death were in a delicate state of balance in Nian Bing's body. They wouldn't be used by Nian Bing, nor would they harm his body. The existence of these two energy balls also allowed Nian Bing to resonate with the pure Xiantian Qi of heaven and earth. After waking up on the godly continent, he cultivated for another half a year. This half a year wasn't wasted. Not only did his magic power increase, but his Xiantian Qi also underwent a qualitative change. If it wasn't for the fact that Nian Bing deliberately didn't cultivate his Xiantian Qi, his West Meridian Point would have been open long ago. Today, when Theron activated his West Meridian Point, an invisible wave of Xiantian Qi was produced. This wave of Xiantian Qi infected Nian Bing's body. To be more precise, it infected the Xiantian Qi in his body. After he killed Theron, his Xiantian Qi miraculously connected with the essence of heaven and earth under the influence of this wave of Xiantian Qi, pushing him to another level. When a strange whirlpool reached Nian Bing's abdomen, the tip of the whirlpool stopped 3 inches below his navel. Nian Bing's body trembled violently. Right at the tip of the whirlpool, he clearly felt like something had broken. Immediately after, the white whirlpool began to violently compress. His lower abdomen was filled with a swelling pain, and his body felt like it was about to explode. After going through so many cycles of pain, this kind of pain was nothing to Nian Bing. He watched as the white stream of Xiantian Qi continued to condense in his lower abdomen. At this moment, he suddenly felt his mind clear up. A golden light floated down from the sky, eye, and ultimate emperor aperture, and directly enveloped the milky white Xiantian Qi that was being compressed. The swelling pain disappeared, and Nian Bing watched as the milky white light quickly shrunk under the light of the Jindan. After a while, it condensed into a white ring of light 3 inches below his navel, and in the middle of the ring of light was black. Like a bottomless abyss, the Xiantian Qi he had absorbed surged into the black hole and disappeared. Nian Bing realized that the aura around his body was completely different. He could feel every trace of Xiantian Qi in the air, and these Xiantian Qi seemed to be revolving around the West Meridian acupoint that he had just opened. Under the influence of these Xiantian Qi, the 7 magic elements were neatly distributed around his body, as if they were waiting for his call. West Meridian acupoint. It was indeed the West Meridian acupoint that could attract Xiantian Qi. Although he couldn't explain why, Nian Bing could feel that his West Meridian acupoint wasn't in the early stage, as it should have been when he had just opened it. Instead, it had directly entered the middle stage. Nian Bing could clearly see the energy fluctuations when Theron used his West Meridian acupoint to control the Xiantian Qi around him. He realized that his West Meridian acupoint's ability to control the condensation, contraction, and release of Xiantian Qi wasn't any worse than Theron's. Reaching the middle stage right after opening one acupoint meant that he could save a lot of time in the future. But why? That's right. It was the fusion of his sky, eye, and ultimate emperor aperture. That must be it. Under the golden light, the West Meridian acupoint changed in an instant. He didn't even have to go through the painful process. The Tianyin acupoint and the Huangji acupoint must have changed during the process of fusion. If he could reach the middle stage of every acupoint he opened in the future, although he couldn't use the power of the Tianyin acupoint, it would still be very beneficial. Thinking of this, Nian Bing felt the Xiantian qi in his chest surging. He couldn't help but let out a long roar. The sound waves rolled up, and all the meridians in his body seemed to become active. Even his blood was boiling. The long roar lasted for the time it took to eat a meal before stopping. When Yin Bing opened his eyes, he was surprised to find that he was sitting on the ground. The luxurious carriage was now in pieces. Was it Halogen, Urian, or Mu Jing and her subordinates? At this moment, they were all standing in the distance, looking at him as if he were a monster. Yin Bing lowered his head and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his clothes were still there. Otherwise, he would have made a fool of himself. With a thought, he stood up, feeling the neatly arranged magic elements in the air and the abundant Xiantian qi. He knew that his strength had increased again. Don't look at me like that, okay? I'm not a monster. Nian Bing couldn't help but find it funny when he saw that everyone was still staring at him. As he spoke, he moved his feet and arrived in front of everyone. His strong body, powerful magic, and spiritual power that even he didn't know what level he was at had molded him into a true powerhouse. Halogen muttered, "You still say you're not a monster. Fortunately, I discovered early. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have disintegrated like that carriage." Nian Bing couldn't help but laugh. "I'm still not that strong. Brother, do you think I don't know how strong your body is?" With his West Meridian opened, he was in a good mood. Everything around him seemed to have become more beautiful than before. At this moment, he discovered that the end of the canyon Halogen had created last night had extended all the way to the area where the diplomatic mission was stationed. Fortunately, its power was much weaker now. Mu Jing walked up to Nian Bing. "Brother, are you really not going to go to Maplewood City with me?" Nian Bing nodded. "I've already done what I promised you." "Jing, you have to take care of yourself. Remember my promise to you." Mu Jing sighed softly. "It's fine if you don't go. Once we're in Maplewood City, everything will be out of my control. Brother, you and sisters-in-law, take care of yourselves. I wish you all a safe journey." Although her heart was surging with emotions, she didn't reveal too much. Was her relationship with Nian Bing really just that of sibling? Only she knew this. However, no matter what she thought, she didn't want to make things difficult for Nian Bing. In her heart, Nian Bing's position was already incomparable. What could be more important than a person who was truly good to her, even if he only saw her as a sister? Mu Jing left with her diplomatic group. The sad look in her eyes before she left couldn't be hidden from Nian Bing's eyes. Naturally, it couldn't be hidden from Feng Nu and the others. However, Feng Nu and Urian were clearly in low spirits. No one said anything, only watching Mu Jing's convoy leave in silence. "Mother, are you worried?" Nian Bing walked to Urian's side and stood still. Urian sighed softly. "Although Feng Nu and I have never thought of leaving the Feng people, will our actions be approved by our clansmen? Will they still accept us?" "Why not? Mother, there's something I've always wanted to tell you. Perhaps it's because you're in the situation that you don't understand." Urian stared blankly. "What's the matter? Tell me." Nian Bing smiled slightly, held Feng Nu's hand, and said, "Mother, have you ever thought about it? If your clansmen really don't recognize you or hate you, then can you still reunite with your own daughter? Feng Nu, let me ask you, how do the Feng people's elders treat you? How much do they value you?" Feng Nu said, "The elders treat me very well. Every elder in the clan is very good to me. They unreservedly taught me the Feng people's unique skills. Moreover, they even recognized me as the Phoenix of Hope in the clan competition. I haven't forgotten the elders' kindness in raising me. This is also the reason why I didn't dare to accept your feelings, and the reason why I have to go back now." Nian Bing nodded and said, "That's enough. Mother, don't you understand? If the elders hadn't forgiven you, I'm afraid Feng Nu would have died long ago. They treat Feng Nu so well, which proves that these elders have never forgotten you. They also didn't treat Feng Nu badly because she is your daughter with a human. The Phoenix of Hope should have a very high status in the Feng people. Feng Nu can become the Phoenix of Hope, which proves that the Feng people's elders have already forgiven you. Everything they did for Feng Nu proves that they are kind. If you and Feng Nu can return in a time of danger, they will only be happy and selfish. Why would they make things difficult for you? Even if they really expelled you from the Feng people, in order to help your clansmen, wouldn't you secretly take action? Therefore, you don't have to worry about anything now. I believe that those elders are not unreasonable people. After listening to Nian Bing's words, Yu Ruyan's originally somewhat dim eyes suddenly brightened. That's right. If the elders hadn't forgiven her, how could they let her daughter become the Phoenix of Hope? Nian Bing glanced at Lan Chun, who was not far away, and said, "The one who needs to worry now is Chun Chun. Originally, I believed that you and Feng Nu's strength should be enough to deal with everything. However, I heard from Feng Nu that Chun Chun's Ice Phoenix will have a great impact on the Feng people's ceremony this time. Therefore, I must go with you." Lan Chun was also the main person that Yu Ruyan was worried about. Looking at Nian Bing's determined gaze, Yu Ruyan finally revealed a trace of a smile. "Nian Bing, it seems that my daughters were right to choose first." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Of course, I will always protect them." "All right, Mother, we should also be on our way. The earlier we arrive at the Feng people, the more time we have to prepare." Without the burden of the diplomatic mission, everyone resumed their journey. Nian Bing relied on wind magic to carry Halogen, and Feng Nu supported Longling. The group of 6 headed towards the northwest of the Longmu Empire. Flying was naturally much faster than hurrying. In a short 2 days, they were already close to their destination. In the distance, a large expanse of dense forest appeared below them. Even the air was clearly much fresher. Nian Bing's group of 6 could be said to be the strongest group in the Yangon continent. Lan Chun, who was close to becoming a divine master, Ice Magus Long Ling, Yu Ruyan, and Feng Nu, who were infinitely close to becoming a divine master, Dwarf Warrior Halogen, who was close to becoming a divine master, and Icefire Magus Nian Bing, who was close to becoming a divine master. What a powerful group this was. On the way, Nian Bing joked that if everyone formed an adventuring group, perhaps all the mercenary groups in the Yangon continent would lose their jobs. Just as they were about to reach the edge of the firewood forest, Yu Ruyan said, "Let's go down." Long Ling strangely asked, "Annie, why don't we fly directly to the Feng people's habitat? This forest has not been cultivated. I'm afraid it will delay us." Yu Ruyan gently smiled and said, "This is out of respect for our people. In our phoenixes, as long as a core member has the royal feathers, they can use their wings to fly. However, no one has ever flown in the sky above our forest. That will be seen as an act of blasphemy against our ancestors." Everyone landed on the ground at the edge of the firewood forest. Yu Ruyan said, "Nian Bing, if my clansmen make things difficult for you after you meet them, I hope you can endure as much as possible. Just consider it as doing this for Feng Nu and Chun Chun, okay?" She had already seen how powerful Nian Bing was. If the Feng people's clansmen provoked him, she was afraid she wouldn't be able to stop him. That was why she gave Nian Bing a heads up in advance. Nian Bing faintly smiled and said, "Mom, don't worry. For your sake, I won't argue with the Feng people. I am no longer that little child from back then." Looking at Yu Ruyan's beautiful face that never seemed to age, he couldn't help but recall the first time he met her in Lan Chun. His heart was filled with warmth. With the help of Nian Bing's longevity blade, Halogen turned back into an ordinary human. Hearing this, he said, "My clan's ancient records have recorded that the Feng people's ancestor, the Phoenix, should have appeared on the Lost Continent. It also died during the Great War of the Gods. The Feng people are a peace-loving clan, but at the same time, they are also a very xenophobic clan. Nian Bing, I'm afraid our journey won't be smooth." Nian Bing faintly smiled and said, "I can still not retaliate when hit or scolded. Big brother, just endure with me." Halogen nodded and said, "That's the only way. Then we can start our journey." After Halogen followed Nian Bing to the Yangon continent, although he came into contact with many humans, he never spoke to them. Even Lan Shun and the others were no exception. If Nian Bing didn't speak, he would always silently follow beside Nian Bing. If it wasn't for his earth-shattering attack that day, perhaps Yu Ruyin and the others wouldn't be able to see through his true identity. After knowing that Halogen was a dwarf and seeing his strength, Yu Ruyin understood that this dwarf's age was far above hers. She was very respectful towards him throughout the journey. Chapter 202. The name of the firewood forest came from the Phoenix volcano in the middle of the forest. The volcano would erupt once every 100 years, but this primitive forest had never been damaged. This was all thanks to the efforts of the Feng people. The reason why ordinary people would not live here was not only because they were afraid of the volcano, but at the same time, there were also a large number of ferocious beasts living in this forest. While walking through the rugged forest, Feng Nu introduced the various animals in the forest to Nian Bing and the rest. "Sister, these animals are so ferocious. Why didn't they disturb us?" They had already walked for half a day, and it felt like they had walked for a long time, but the firewood forest was still boundless. When Feng Nu heard Lan Chen's question, she smiled and said, "Although animals do not have the intelligence of humans, they are still very intelligent. In this forest, we, the Taunting tribe, are the kings of the forest. No matter what kind of animals, once they feel the aura of the Feng people on us, they will all avoid us. Naturally, they will not come and offend us." Long Ling giggled and said, "So animals also bully the weak and fear the strong?" "Sister Feng Nu, how much longer do we have to walk before we reach the parasol tree forest where the Feng people live?" Feng Nu smiled and said, "We will be there soon. Our speed is very fast. I don't know how long this primitive forest has been growing for. Although it makes people feel that there is no end, in fact, behind the giant tree is our parasol tree forest." Feng Nu was speaking when Yin Bing's expression suddenly changed. She looked forward and shouted, "Who is it?" 3 figures flashed like lightning in the forest. After a few graceful rises and falls, they had already appeared 10 zhang away from the group. They were 3 young men, and all of them were men. The leader was as tall as Nian Bing, and he had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He wore ordinary clothes made of coarse cloth that couldn't conceal his heroic aura, and he had short fiery red hair that stood on end. When he landed and stood still, his gaze was already fixed on Feng Nu's body. His eyes were constantly fluctuating, filled with longing. It was also filled with some indescribable negative emotions. Feng Nu was also somewhat stunned. Looking at this handsome young man, her face was somewhat stiff. Feng Ying's expression was complicated as he shifted his gaze from Feng Nu to the others. His voice was slightly trembling. "Feng Nu, you're back. You're finally back. I thought I would never see you again." Feng Nu forced a smile and said, "The Phoenix Nirvana ceremony is about to begin. As a member of the Feng people, how could I not return? I'll have to trouble you to inform the elders that I've returned with my mother." Feng Ying was stunned. "Your mother? Didn't you lose both your parents when you were young?" "No. Not only does she have a mother, but she also has a father. Looking at your age, you might not know who I am, but your parents definitely know who I am. Go back and tell the elders that Feng Yin has brought Lan Shun, Feng Nu, and a few friends back to participate in the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. We'll wait here." The one who spoke was Yu Ruyin. Looking at the 3 young clansmen in front of her, breathing in the familiar scent of the firewood forest, her eyes were somewhat moist. After being separated for several decades, she had finally returned home. Her feelings were several times deeper than Feng Nu's. Feng Ying had already awoken from the ecstasy of seeing Feng Nu. He looked somewhat doubtfully at Yu Ruyin, who did not seem much older than Feng Nu. Frowning slightly, he whispered a few words into the ears of his companions. One of the Feng people quickly retreated, disappearing into the forest in the blink of an eye. Feng Ying only had eyes for Feng Nu. Although there were 6 people in Feng Nu's group, he could only distinguish the genders of the other 5. The moment his companions left, he appeared in front of Feng Nu in a flash. He raised his hand to grab Feng Nu. "You're finally back. Do you know how much I've missed you these days?" "Feng Nu, don't worry. No matter what mistakes you've made, I'll help you. Don't leave again. You know how I feel. Your training should have ended long ago. I don't know how many times I've wanted to go out to look for you, but my father never allowed me to. His affectionate gesture had already told everyone a lot of things, but when he pulled, the Phoenix girl avoided it without a trace. Feng, don't be like this. I'll naturally settle my own matters with the elders. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing nervously. Nian Bing's expression did not change, but the stillness in her eyes made Feng Nu feel uneasy. Feng Ying's expression changed slightly. He raised his hand again to grab Phoenix Girl's hand. However, this time, Phoenix Girl retreated even more obviously. With a single step, she was already one zhang away. Feng Ying frowned as he looked at her and said, Phoenix Girl, what's wrong with Nian? We've been engaged for a long time. We were just waiting for you to come back from your training to officially get married. I heard from grandfather that you've fallen in love with another man outside. I don't believe it. We grew up together. You can't possibly fall in love with another man, right? If Nian Bing's eyes were still a moment ago, then at this moment his eyes were ice cold. He did not speak, nor did he do anything. He just stood there. Long Ling took the initiative to grab Nian Bing's hand. But at this moment, she was shocked to find that Nian Bing's hand was as cold as his eyes. At this moment, Nian Bing waited for Feng Nu's reply. Feng Ying, listen to me, Feng Nu said anxiously. He naturally noticed the change in Nian Bing's expression. Feng Ying, I came back this time for two things. One is to participate in the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony and help the Feng people get through this difficult time. The other thing is to get rid of the marriage contract with you. Although we grew up together, I've always treated you as a friend and not a lover. I'm sorry, Elder Feng Su is right. I've indeed fallen in love with someone else. He's my true lover. After this ceremony, I'll leave with him and focus on being his wife. Feng Ying's body trembled. His eyes immediately became agitated, and he staggered back a step. No, I don't believe this is true. You must be lying to me, right? We already have a marriage contract. How can you fall in love with someone else? You're lying to me. You must be lying to me. Feng Nu was the #1 beauty in the younger generation of the Feng people, and Feng Ying was the most outstanding man in the younger generation. They grew up together, and Feng Ying had always treated Feng Nu as his future wife. In contrast to Feng Ying's agitation, Nian Bing's gaze became gentle again. She shook her head in self-mockery and thought to herself, what's wrong with me? Am I actually doubting Feng Nu's feelings for me? Although she didn't tell me that she already has a fiancé, as long as her heart is with me. Then what's the point of everything in the past? Feng Nu lowered her head and said, I'm sorry, Feng Ying. I know you've been very good to me, but I've really fallen in love with someone else. He's my husband, and I'll only love him in my life. I know it's cruel to say this to you. However, it's better to deal with the pain quickly. Since I saw you as soon as I returned, I'll make things clear to you so that there won't be any misunderstandings in the future. I'm sorry, Feng Ying. Sorry? What's the use of saying sorry? Don't tell me you haven't grown up, and I've placed all my feelings on you? So many girls in the clan have confessed to me, but I've never overstepped my boundaries. Because I already have you in my heart, in my eyes. There's no one who can compare to you. Sorry? Can my love for you be made up for by these 3 words? Feng Ying roared at Feng Nu in a crazed manner. Nian Bing moved. He slowly walked to Feng Nu's side and reached out a firm arm to hug Feng Nu's shoulder. Love cannot be measured by anything else. I hope you can respect Feng Nu's choice and not make things difficult for her. Feng Ying's expression gradually turned cold, his cold gaze landing on Nian Bing's handsome face. Is the one she loves you? Nian Bing nodded and said, That's right, I am her husband. Feng Ying took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. All right, I want to duel with you. Feng Nu's expression changed, and she quickly appeared in front of Nian Bing. No, Feng Ying, don't be like this, all right? Her eyes were slightly red. Although she didn't love Feng Ying, but since she was young, how could she forget the care and concern he had shown her? She had always seen him as her best friend. Without waiting for Feng Nu to speak, Nian Bing patted Feng Nu's shoulder lightly. Feng Nu, this is between us 2 men. Feng Nu's body trembled, and she turned her head to look at Nian Bing. Nian Bing nodded lightly at her, and a trace of sadness appeared in Feng Nu's eyes. "I'm sorry, Bing." Nian Bing smiled, and the hand holding her shoulder tightened. "You don't have to say any more. What you said to Feng Ying just now has already told me everything. Don't worry, I won't hurt him. Love is not wrong, but it's a pity that he loves someone who doesn't love him back." Feng Nu nodded lightly and turned to walk to the side. If she was asked who she was most familiar with, it would be Nian Bing. As a young person, facing such a challenge, Nian Bing would never back down. Feng Ying's lungs almost exploded from anger. Looking at Nian Bing's attitude, it was obvious that she didn't put him in her eyes. He had always thought highly of himself, and among the Feng people, only he and Feng Nu had the highest chance of becoming the next elder. Nian Bing raised her head to look at Feng Ying and said, "Is it here?" Feng Ying coldly stared into Nian Bing's eyes, and he suddenly realized that he couldn't see anything from Nian Bing's eyes. It was as deep as the ocean, but at this time his heart had already lost all reason due to the intense jealousy. And he said in a deep voice, "It's here. If you win, I will cancel the engagement with Feng Nu, but if you lose, please leave Feng Nu's side." His good upbringing from childhood allowed him to maintain some degree of clarity at this time. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, "All right, then it's here. However, there are some things that I have to say first. First of all, I am not fighting with you for Feng Nu, because there is no need to fight. Feng Nu is not a commodity. She is a person, and she has the right to choose who she loves. I am fighting with you to let you understand that I am stronger than you and more qualified than you to be Feng Nu's lover and more capable of protecting her. Secondly, I want to tell you that you cannot win against me." The strong self-confidence caused Nian Bing's aura to soar. He just stood there and looked at Feng Ying, his body as steady as a mountain. The Feng people who came with Feng Ying thought that Nian Bing had gone crazy. Of course, he knew how strong Feng Ying was, but Yu Ruyin and the others who came with Nian Bing were not surprised at all, because they knew that Nian Bing had the right to speak like this, and also had the strength to do so. This was a battle between men. None of them would interfere, because it concerned both sides' dignity. Nian Bing did not summon his 7 divine blades. He just stood there leisurely, looking at Feng Ying in front of him. In order to defeat his love rival in front of his beloved Feng Nu, Feng Ying used his full strength right from the start. The 9-leaved dough cheese surged out, and in the sound of tearing silk, a pair of huge royal feathers appeared behind him. When Feng Nu left to train, he was still unable to use this ability, but in these few years, Feng Ying had improved greatly. With the appearance of the royal feathers, golden phoenix flames surged out. The surrounding temperature rose significantly, the plants withered, and a simple open space appeared between the two. Nian Bing still did not move. Looking at Feng Ying, his heart was unusually calm. No matter who the opponent was, Nian Bing would not underestimate them. A faint 7-colored light had already appeared around his body. Feng Ying did not draw the long sword on his back. His body was under the effect of the royal feathers, floating a foot above the ground. "Since you don't use a weapon, I won't either." His figure flashed, leaving behind a string of afterimages in the air. He arrived in front of Nian Bing and punched at Nian Bing's face without any fancy moves. This seemingly powerful punch, in fact, Feng Ying only used 30% of his strength. This punch was just to test the waters. Nian Bing did not move, nor did he use magic to defend. He just watched Feng Ying's punch hit his face. With a bang, Nian Bing staggered back 3 steps. Only then did he stabilize his body, his head tilted to the side because of the punch. No one present expected him to be hit by Feng Ying. Feng Nu, Long Ling, and Lan Shen all cried out in surprise at almost the same time. Nian Bing slowly turned his head, nodded to Feng Ying, and said, "Don't hold back, come." Feng Ying looked at Nian Bing with a dignified expression. Of course, he knew how much strength was in his punch, although 30% of his strength was not enough. But it was enough to smash a huge piece of granite into pieces, and the opponent only retreated a few steps before stopping. At the moment when Nian Bing's face came into close contact with his face, he clearly felt that Nian Bing did not have any protective do qi, but his skin was very tough. The originally solid punch was weakened by more than 30% the moment it came into contact with the skin. Moreover, the fire attribute of his 9 abandonment Do Chi did not seem to have any effect. Feng Ying rushed up again. This time the power of his attack was increased to 70%. The sky was filled with palm shadows, almost covering all the possible escape routes around Nian Bing's body. This was a move that Feng Ying was very good at. It was called Phoenix Shadow Palm. Although the attack power was scattered, but once it came into contact with the opponent's body, the scattered Do Chi would instantly condense together, causing heavy damage to the opponent. Nian Bing still did not dodge, and all of Feng Ying's illusionary palms landed on empty air. When the two bodies froze at the same time, Feng Ying's right palm landed on Nian Bing's chest. With a boom, Nian Bing was sent flying by the enormous 9 leave battle aura. He only stopped after crashing into a large tree in the distance. His chest had already been char-black. Sliding down from the tree, Nian Bing did not fall, but stood on the ground, not even looking at the burn area on his chest, step by step towards Feng Ying, and coldly said, "Again, is this all you've got?" Nian Bing's super strong defense aroused Feng Ying's strong fighting spirit. Fiercely roaring, his body swayed in the air. The originally solid body instantly became illusory. Like a cloud of fire, he rushed towards Nian Bing. Illusionary Phoenix Demon Body, the third transformation of the 9 Phoenix transformations. Seeing Feng Ying pouncing towards himself, Nian Bing did not take the beating in vain this time. The 7-colored light around his body lit up at the same time. The light expanded in an instant, and when Feng Ying's red cloud entered the 7-colored light, the red light around his body instantly weakened, and when he arrived in front of Nian Bing, he had already returned to his original form, a fist landing on Nian Bing's chest. But this time, Nian Bing was not beaten back, only coldly. Looking at him, "Do you understand?" Feng Ying's face was ashen as he looked at Nian Bing in front of him. He understood, but at the same time, he did not understand. What he did not understand was how Nian Bing broke the third transformation of the Phoenix that he had painstakingly cultivated. He understood. He was simply not the opponent of this man in front of him. The opponent only relied on defense and broke 3 of his attacks. If he were to attack him, then would he be able to block it? Feng Ying looked at Nian Bing with a complicated expression. He withdrew his fist, took 3 steps back, and took a deep breath. He nodded vigorously, saying, "I understand. Perhaps Feng Nu has made the right choice. Perhaps you're more suitable for her than I am." Nian Bing said, "You understand the difference in power, but you still do not understand a woman's heart. A girl may be attracted to a powerful man, but it does not mean that whoever is powerful will be able to obtain her true love. Love, there is no reason for it. Your love for Feng Nu is not wrong, so I have not attacked you. If you want to challenge me again, I will welcome you at any time. However, I'm afraid that you will have to wait until you have broken through to the 7th transformation of the Phoenix." Feng Ying was a little dejected as he looked at Nian Bing. Nian Bing didn't look much older than him, but why was the gap in their strength so huge? Of course, he did not know that Nian Bing had suffered a lot in order to achieve what he had today. He had walked on the edge of life and death countless times. Feng Ying was very talented, but he had never experienced real hardships. How could he compare to Nian Bing? While Nian Bing and Feng Ying were fighting, in the parasol tree forest of the Feng people, 2 elders of the Feng people were looking at each other worriedly. Feng Kong said, "Second brother, are we really going to start the ceremony like this?" Although Ying already has the ability to break through to the 3rd transformation, I'm afraid this ceremony. Feng Su sighed. "Then what do you want me to do? What can I do if I don't participate like this? I will take responsibility for the decline of the Feng people. If it was not for the lack of outstanding talents in the clan, how could we have fallen to this state? Perhaps I was wrong back then. If Yin was still here, everything would not have turned out like this." Feng Kong fell silent. From what he knew, Feng Su had always been a stubborn elder brother, but he actually admitted his mistakes like this. All these changes were because of the upcoming ceremony. Feng Su looked much older than before. He was already mentally and physically exhausted from thinking about how to complete the ceremony every day. Feng Su glanced at Feng Kong. There are no other good ideas now. This is all we can do. All right, you don't have to worry too much. Perhaps our ancestor, the Phoenix, will understand our difficulties and won't cause such a huge uproar during the ceremony. Actually, did you know? When I chased Feng Yin away, I had a huge internal struggle. But at that time, I had no choice but to do so in front of everyone. Feng Kong smiled. Others may not understand, but do you think I don't? You led the team to chase them down to protect them. Later on, you found that they could protect themselves, so you left. Sigh, both Feng Yin and her daughter are so outstanding, much more outstanding than we expected. If the clan didn't have so many rules, perhaps we would welcome the ceremony with much more ease. Even I didn't expect Yin to improve so much and reach the 5th transformation. How many years has it been since the Feng people produced a talent? But she was chased away by the clan rules. Report. A young voice sounded from outside. Inside the room, Feng Su frowned. What's the matter? Elders, there are few people outside. Feng Nu is with them. One of them said that Feng Yin brought her daughter, Lan, Chun, Feng Nu, and a few friends to participate in the ceremony. Feng Su and Feng Kong were both shocked. After a brief daze, Feng Kong's face lit up with joy. Yin is back, and so is Feng Nu. That's great, that's great. They never forgot about the Feng people. They finally came back at the most crucial time. Second brother, now that they're back, all our problems are solved. Feng Su's excitement was different from Feng Kong's. He frowned as if thinking about something. After hearing Feng Kong's words, he said, No, I'm afraid it's not that simple. If they came back to help us, why would they bring outsiders back? Let's go take a look. If she and Feng Nu really turn back, then we can rest assured. Feng Ying leaned against a tree and stared blankly at the sky. The short battle had completely shattered his confidence. He never thought that he would lose to someone like this. He also never thought that there would be such a powerful existence in the world. But the truth was right in front of him. Nianbing's strength gave him a new understanding. Nianbing also stood to the side. The Feng people were waiting with Yuruyan and the others to report back. Feng Nu held Nianbing's hand and stood there with her head lowered. She looked like a little girl who did something wrong, not daring to look into Nianbing's eyes. Long Ling and Lan Chun stood to the side. Yuruyan was introducing the various plants in the forest to Halogen. She didn't seem to notice Nianbing and Feng Nu's situation. Do you have something to say to me? Nianbing pulled the Phoenix girl's hand and brought her to him. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he looked at her slender, jade-like hand. I'm sorry. Feng Nu seemed to have gathered her courage to say these 3 words. Don't say sorry. You've said these 3 words too many times today. I just want to know why you didn't tell me. Back then, you refused to accept my feelings. Other than the rules of the Feng people, it was also because of this engagement. Nianbing's voice was very calm. But in Feng Nu's ears, it sounded like sarcasm. Feng Nu gently nodded and said, Feng Ying and I grew up together. In the eyes of the clan, we were a match made in heaven. When we were only 10 years old, Elder Feng Su made the decision to set up a marriage contract with us. At that time, I thought that there was no difference between husband and wife and friends. No one had ever told me about the outside world. I thought of Feng Ying as an elder brother and a friend. But when I really went out and started my own experience, I gradually found out that I was wrong. Especially after I met you, I found out how wrong I was. Friendship and love are completely different. But I knew my responsibility in the clan, so I didn't dare and couldn't accept you. But so many things happened later. Even I didn't expect things to develop like that. At that time, I knew that when true love comes, running away is useless. That's why I became your Phoenix girl. When you turned into a zombie and went to the godly mainland, I even forgot about my engagement. Do you know why I didn't tell you? In fact, in my heart, you are a person who loves to rush forward. Maybe it's because of the hatred from my parents when I was young, so I didn't dare to tell you. Although I don't love Feng Ying, he is my best friend. I was afraid that you would come to the Feng people and get hurt because of a conflict with our clansmen. I was also afraid that you would kill him. Bing, thank you. You are more mature than before. You are no longer the Nian Bing who would rush forward because of hatred. Nian Bing smiled and said, At the beginning, I was indeed a little angry because you hid such an important thing from me. But when you told Feng Ying that you were my woman, the anger in my heart had already disappeared. The past is the past. You are mine now, and you will also be mine in the future. As long as the love between us doesn't change, no matter how big the storm is, we can always endure it, right? Feng Ying is indeed worthy of being your friend. From his appearance to our battle, I've been observing him. To be honest, he is jealous of me, and I am also jealous of him. I am jealous that he was able to grow up with you. But from his actions, I found that his character is simple and untainted. How could I hurt such a person? All right, that's all in the past. Now, what we have to face is the elders of your clan. As soon as Nian Bing finished speaking, her scattered spiritual power had already locked onto the dozen figures that were quickly approaching. Although they were still a few dozen meters away, Nian Bing's spiritual power could clearly determine their movements. From the aura of the two people in front, it was Elder Feng Su and Elder Feng Kong. The aura in the forest flowed. After a few breaths, the dozen figures had already arrived nearby and passed through the dense forest. The first to appear was Elder Feng Su of the Feng people. Feng Kong followed closely behind. The rest were all Feng people that Nian Bing had never seen before. They were all dressed in the same clothes, which couldn't be more ordinary, but they were all restrained. It was obvious that they were experts. As expected, none of the Feng people were mediocre. When Yu Rian saw the two elders appear, she immediately stopped talking with Halogen. Feng Su and Feng Kong naturally saw her as well. At the same time, they also saw Feng Nu, Lan Shun, Long Ling, Halogen, and Nian Bing. When the two elders saw Feng Nu and Nian Bing holding hands, their expressions couldn't help but change slightly, and they stopped in their tracks. Yu Rian took a few steps forward and stopped 5 meters away from the two elders. She respectfully bowed to them. Feng Yin has brought his daughters Lan Shun and Feng Nu to participate in the clan's grand ceremony. Feng Su said indifferently, I thought that you would never set foot on this land again. I didn't expect that you would still come back. Did you come back just to participate in the clan's grand ceremony? Yu Rian sighed softly. I'm sorry, Elder. I know that my choice back then hurt you, but I had no choice. Elder Feng Su, I've misunderstood you in the past. Thank you for raising my daughter. Although we've been separated for 20 years, now that I know that my daughter is still alive, let's forget about our past grudges. Not only did Feng Su play an important role in Yu Rian's growth and raise her, but he also raised her daughter, Feng Nu. Although Feng Su's actions caused them to be separated for 20 years, Yu Rian had already abandoned all hatred in her heart. She came back this time just to help the Feng people complete the ceremony. Feng Su looked at Yu Rian in surprise. Then at Feng Nu, you already know? Yu Rian nodded. Yes, Elder. You hid it from me for so long. Feng Su said coldly, if your daughter really died in my hands back then, I'm afraid you wouldn't be here today. Yu Rian shook her head. No, even if Feng Nu really died when she was young, I would still come back. I will first help the clan complete the ceremony, then I will challenge you. This time, Feng Kong didn't wait for Feng Su to speak before he interrupted. Everything should be based on the big picture. Yin, as expected of our clan's Phoenix of Hope, we didn't misjudge you. Good child, it's good that you're back. As he spoke, he couldn't help but tug on Feng Su's sleeve. Chapter 203. Feng Su's expression was still stiff as he said coldly, What's wrong with them? You should know that this is a forbidden area of the clan. You and Feng Nu actually brought these outsiders back, openly flouting the clan's rules. Is this your contribution to the clan? Although he was scolding Yu Rian, he was undoubtedly admitting that Yu Rian was a member of the Feng people. Yu Rian looked at Feng Su, who was putting on a tough front, and couldn't help but find it funny. From Feng Kong's expression, she could tell that the Feng people situation wasn't looking good, but Elder Feng Su was still pretending to make things difficult for her for the sake of the clan's rules. This Elder Feng Su was actually a respectable elder, but sometimes he was too stubborn. Yu Rian knew that the first problem had been solved, but the second problem they had to face together wasn't as easy as the first one. After all, she grew up under the care of Feng Su and Feng Kong, and so did Feng Nu. That relationship naturally played a key role when they returned to the Feng people. But the second problem they had to face was related to the survival of the Feng people. After hesitating, Yuruyan decided to open the problem now. She knew that the longer they dragged it, the more disadvantageous it would be. If they wanted to get through this second problem, they needed everyone to work together. Thinking of this, she looked up at the two elders and said, "This time, I didn't only bring back Feng Nu, I also brought back my other daughter. This is Chunshun." As she spoke, she waved at Lanshan. Lanshan walked to her mother's side and stood there. Looking at her mother's clansmen in front of her, she felt uneasy. Feng Su and Feng Kong's gazes landed on Lanshan. This girl who didn't lose out to Feng Nu in terms of looks looked more like Yuruyan than Feng Nu. However, the cold aura around her made the two elders feel that something was wrong. Feng Kong couldn't help but say, "Since she's your daughter, why don't you take her as your daughter? Then, she also has the blood of the Feng people. What does bringing her have to do with bringing those outsiders back?" Yuruyan sighed and nodded to Lanshan. Under everyone's gaze, a layer of blue halo rose from Lanshan's body. The halo drifted outwards, and the cold aura made the fire attribute Feng people frown. At this moment, a resonant phoenix cry came from Lanshan's mouth. Huge blue wings appeared behind her back. The beautiful Lan Chun floated up under the effect of the huge Feng people's royal feathers. Silence hung in the air. Feng Su and Feng Kong widened their eyes in shock. They looked at each other and said in unison, "Ice Phoenix." The younger generation of the Feng people might not know what the Ice Phoenix represented, but as the only two remaining elders of the Feng people, how could they not know? The hope that had been ignited with great difficulty fell to the bottom of the valley. The way they looked at Yuruyan also changed. Yuruyan sighed. She said, "Elders, do you understand now? I brought Shinshin back to tell you this, so that you could be prepared. As for those three outsiders, I had no choice but to bring them back because with their strength, it's very likely that they can help us through this crisis. I hope that you too can abandon the prejudice in the clan. Let them also participate in our Phoenix Nirvana ceremony." Feng Su's eyes became abnormally cold. Feng Kong was about to say something, but he raised his hand to stop him. Feng people surround. Under his old and deep voice, more than 10 Feng people experts took the most advantageous position. 9 Li's Do Chi was released. Everyone, including Feng Ying, pulled out their long swords. To the Feng people, an elder's words were in order. Feng Su looked at Yuruyan and said coldly, "As the clan's former hope, I'm sure you know what the Ice Phoenix represents. When the Ice Phoenix appears, the Phoenix rises. This story means that the Feng people are on the verge of destruction. According to the clan's rules, whenever an Ice Phoenix appears, it must be destroyed immediately. In our clan's history, there have been 3 Ice Phoenixes. For the sake of the Feng people's survival, all of them were executed according to the clan's rules. Feng Yin, if you still consider yourself a member of our clan, you should know what to do." Yuruyan's expression changed slightly. "Elder, you can let Feng Nu go, but can't you let my other daughter go?" Feng Su looked at Yuruyan and sighed. "Yin, after so many years, I'm calling you this again. You? This time is different from the last time. The appearance of the Ice Phoenix threatens thousands of lives of our Wa people. For the sake of the Feng people, I have to do this. Even if you're unwilling to help us get through this crisis, because of this, I have to make this choice." Nianbing walked up to Yuruyan and Lanshan. "Elder Feng Su, isn't the appearance of the Ice Phoenix a bad thing? Perhaps the appearance of the Ice Phoenix is also an opportunity for the Feng people." Feng Su snorted. "Perhaps? Do I have to use thousands of lives of my clan to bet on your perhaps?" Nianbing joked as she stared into Feng Su's eyes. "Elder, do you think you can kill Chunxin in front of us with just a dozen people?" Feng Su looked coldly at Nianbing. "You think too highly of us Feng people. As long as I call, we Feng people can set up the Phoenix spreading wings formation. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to escape. For the sake of our clan's survival, I'd rather let this firewood forest suffer a calamity." "Grandpa, he can't." "Maybe he's right." Feng Ying suddenly flew to Feng Su's side and whispered something. Although Nianbing could hear his voice through her Tian Yin acupoint, His language was unique to the Feng people. Hearing Feng Ying's words, Feng Su's expression changed slightly. No, I can't take this risk. Yen'er, what's your decision? Yu Ruyan's gaze turned cold. Elder Feng Su, I can only apologize to you. Qin Shun is my daughter. As a mother, how can I let my daughter die? Elder, the reason why our phoenixes are gradually declining is because we have obtained too few things from the outside world. We're stuck in our own ways, which is why we have today's result. The phoenix spreading wings formation is indeed the Feng people's strongest formation. The power of 1,000 people is comparable to the god's descent technique, but it's useless to us. Before the arrival of the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony, could it be that you want to cause internal strife in our clan? Nianbing said, Mom, don't worry. You don't have to. You can't blame Elder Feng Su for this. They have their own difficulties. Maybe if it was someone else, they wouldn't risk their entire clan for a chance. Elder Feng Su, I have a suggestion. Feng Su said in a low voice. What suggestion? Nianbing said, since you're so confident in your phoenix spreading wings formation, I'd like to try. If I can break out of this formation, it means that you don't have the power to stop us from leaving. Qinshan won't be killed by you. When that time comes, you have no reason not to take the risk. We came to the Feng people this time to help the Feng people get through this difficult time. If I succeed in breaking out of the formation, then please let the members of the Phoenix clan leave the firewood forest for the time being. Let the few of us and the elders face the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. Even if we fail, we'll just be changing our habitat. Feng Su looked at Nianbing and said with disdain, You want to break into our Phoenix spreading wings formation alone? I can agree to your suggestion, but what if you lose? Before Nianbing could open his mouth, Lan Chen's cold voice rang out. If he loses, he'll lose. If he loses, I'll kill myself here. Chun Shun, Yu Ruyan said anxiously. Others might not know how powerful the Phoenix spreading wings formation was, but how could she not know? Lan Chen smiled. Mom, don't you think this is the best solution? I don't want to make things difficult for you. I know you've never forgotten anything about the Feng people. Even Nianbing is willing to take the risk for me and the Feng people's future. What am I afraid of? I have confidence in Nianbing. He'll definitely be able to break out of the formation. Brother, let me break through this formation with you. Halogen suddenly said. Nianbing shook his head and said, No, I want to challenge the Phoenix wing spread formation myself. He was naturally aware of the dangers involved, but he definitely couldn't allow Shu Luan to participate. Xian's martial skill was extremely overbearing. This time, not only did he have to break through the formation, but he also could not hurt any of the phoenixes. Otherwise, even if he succeeded in breaking through the formation, he would form a grudge with the phoenixes. So, he could only rely on himself. After rejecting Halogen, Nianbing took a few steps forward to Elder Feng Su. Elder, is it fine as long as I can break out of the Phoenix spreading wings formation? Feng Su said proudly. Of course. If you can really break out of the formation, it proves that you have the ability to break it. I have to warn you in advance. Once the formation is set up, there'll only be one outcome if you can't break out of it, and that's death. Nianbing nodded. All right, I understand. You can order your men to set up the formation. Feng Su took out a red flute and put it to his lips. The sharp sound of the flute drifted in the air, creating all kinds of changes. Feng Kong gave Feng Ying a look and said, You'll be in charge of the formation. Feng Ying agreed. His gaze landed on Nianbing as he said, Perhaps this is another type of competition between the two of us. Even though this is unfair, I want to see just how strong you are. Nianbing smiled. You'll see. After he finished speaking, he walked back and sat down cross-legged on the ground. He sensed the dense connate energy in the air and started to regulate his breathing. Right at this moment, a wisp of an ethereal voice entered Nianbing's ears. Maintain your posture and don't move. Listen to me. The Phoenix spreading wings formation is the strongest formation among the Feng people. It's also the strongest joint attack formation. It's so powerful that even the so-called strongest formation on the continent, the Order of the Fire Dragon, wouldn't be able to withstand it. The biggest characteristic of this formation is that it can combine the 9 abandonment battle chi unique to the Feng people. When thousands of people gather their battle chi, it'll have an effect similar to fire magic. Even I haven't seen how strong it is, but I can imagine that once the formation is set up, its power won't be any weaker than the fire god's descent technique. The strength of the formation is determined by the combined strength of the thousands of people in it. The fact that the two elders aren't participating is already giving us some face. If you want to break this formation, you'll have to break through it at a single point. I hope you understand what I mean. Mom won't ask for anything else. You must come out of the formation alive, for yourself and for Chun-Chun. Yu Ruiyan's voice was heavy. She hoped that Nian Bing could successfully break the formation, but she also didn't want her clansmen to suffer any losses. However, to break through the formation at a single point, what they needed to do was to break out of the encirclement. Over there, how would they be able to do that? Nian Bing sat there cross-legged without moving. The Xiantian Qi around the middle stage West Meridian Acupoint emissary was constantly fusing with his body. Every trace of magic element fluctuation appeared in Nian Bing's senses. A god's descent technique level formation? All right then, let me see it for myself. A red cloud appeared in the sky above the firewood forest. If one could see it clearly, they would discover that the red cloud was formed by people who were emitting red battle chi. There were a total of 40 rows. The first row had 25 people. The person at the top spread out the royal feather of the Feng people. Below him, each and every one of them grabbed onto the legs of the person at the top, causing their body to float in the air. At a glance, it was a little unbelievable that one person could carry the weight of 24 people. However, these experts of the Feng people had been cultivating 9 abandonment battle chi for a long time. Their strength was very strong. Under the effect of battle chi, they could make their body as light as a swallow. Although they couldn't fly because they didn't have wings, they could reduce their weight to the greatest extent. Therefore, the 40 people of the Feng people who had the royal feather didn't need to bear much weight. Seeing the red battle chi filling the sky, Yu Ruiyan's expression changed. She didn't expect that so many experts with the royal feather had appeared in the Feng people during the years she was gone. Although having the royal feather didn't mean that they were on the same level as swordsmen, it was enough to prove that this phoenix wing spread formation was the strongest formation that the Feng people could set up. Nian Bing stood up from the ground and casually brushed the dust off her body. Her expression was still as relaxed as before. It was as if she didn't feel any pressure from the 1,000 elites of the Feng people in the air. Feng Su looked at Nian Bing and said, "It's not too late for you to regret it. In these years, we've carefully studied the Phoenix 9 transformations. We found that the first 2 transformations can be triggered by special techniques. In a short period of time, people with the royal bloodline of the Feng people can reach the second transformation. Although their strength is far from Feng news, do you think you have a chance against 1,000 people?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "How do I know if I don't try? Even Chun-Chun has confidence in me. How can I back down?" Feng Su looked at the young man in front of him. He didn't understand where this young man's confidence came from. Although Feng Ying had already told him that he lost to Nian Bing, how could Feng Ying compare to the phoenix wing spread formation formed by the elites of the Feng people? From the beginning, Feng Su didn't plan for Nian Bing to really break through the formation. He set up the strongest phoenix wing spread formation not only to deter Nian Bing, but also to tell Yu Ruiyan that the Feng people did indeed have the strength to keep them here. "All right, I'll tell them to come down and begin." Feng Su's eyes were cold. The life and death of an outsider meant nothing to him. Yu Ruiyan, Halogen, Feng Nu, Lan Chun, and Long Ling all came to Nian Bing's side. 5 people, 10 pairs of eyes focused on him. Nian Bing didn't say anything. He just looked at them with a determined gaze. After looking around, he said to Feng Su, "Elder, I think you don't need to tell him to come down. Since it's a phoenix, let's use the phoenix wing spread formation in the air. This way, we won't destroy this beautiful forest." Feng Su looked at Nian Bing in surprise. His words gave him a good impression. He nodded and blew a note with his flute. The 1,000 Feng people who were about to land returned to their original state. Just as Feng Su and Feng Kong thought that Nian Bing would use magic to rise into the air, Nian Bing let out a long chant. His clear chanting voice soared into the sky. His feet touched the ground, and he suddenly soared into the air. Feng Su and Feng Kong, who had practiced martial art for many years, could clearly sense that this wasn't magic, but the power of a person's own body. But he actually jumped so high. Both of them had the same thought when they saw that Nian Bing's body was still rising after reaching a height of 10 feet. Could it be that this person was not only a magician, but also a warrior? Nian Bing used his actions to give them the answer. Just as his body was about to reach the end, gray light condensed below him. A loud dragon's roar matched Nian Bing's chant. Soaring into the sky, his aura instantly increased. It wasn't any weaker than the phoenix spread wings formation that was beginning to change shape in the air. Under Feng Su and Feng Kong's shocked gazes, the 70-foot-long gray dragon, Oscar, suddenly appeared below Nian Bing. Nian Bing's body had just started to fall when he sat firmly on Oscar's back. The long roars of man and dragon stopped at the same time. Oscar's huge dragon wings suddenly spread open. He carried Nian Bing and soared into the sky. His target was the center of the phoenix spread wings formation. Feng Su's expression changed. Dragon? He can actually control a dragon? Feng Nu shook his head. No, that's his friend and also his partner. Or rather, it's a part of his body. No matter what happened, no matter how shocked the Feng people in the air were, the phoenix spread wings formation suddenly erupted when Nian Bing reached the center of the 40 rows of Feng people. The pervasive red battle aura turned the air into a sea of red. Like a burning cloud, it instantly swallowed Nian Bing's body. Only those who were facing it could feel how powerful the battle aura of 1,000 Feng people's warriors was. Yu Ruyin and the others, who were standing on the ground in time, could also clearly feel the scorching heat in the air. Phoenix cries sounded in the air. The battle between the dragon magicians and the phoenix spread wings formation had already begun. 1,000 people roared at the same time, but it was as if a single person roared in unison. With golden flames as the head and red flames as the body, the phoenix spread wings formation began its operation. The enormous 9 abandonment battle aura transformed into 9 huge fire phoenixes in the air. They rushed towards Nian Bing at almost the same time amidst the large expanse of red clouds. At this moment, Nian Bing was sitting steadily behind Oscar. 7 super divine magic blades appeared at almost the same time. Feng Su and Feng Kong didn't notice that when Yu Ruyin and the others surrounded Nian Bing, Halogen, who was also in the center, had already undergone a great change. This was because he had returned the longevity blade to Nian Bing. The immense pressure felt as if it was going to crush Oscar and himself. The scorching air made them feel as if they were in a furnace. The other magical elements in the surroundings became abnormally weak in front of the 9 fire phoenixes. Only the fire elements were surging and exploding. The power of 1,000 people was indeed powerful. Even if the ice goddess priestess was here, she would have a hard time resisting the attack of the 9 fire phoenixes. However, even though Nian Bing wasn't a priestess of the ice goddess, and he wasn't confident that he could win against a priestess of the ice goddess, he was a mage with the same origin of ice and fire. As a dragon mage, he had his own methods. After opening the 4th acupoint, Nian Bing had a completely new understanding of how to use the acupoints. Although he only had a day to get used to the appearance of the West Meridian acupoint, compared to a few days ago when he attacked Shiluan, he was already different. His most valuable asset wasn't the 7 divine blades floating around him, nor was it the enormous amount of magic in his body. It was his mental strength that constantly unleashed all of its power. If it was someone else who was surrounded like this, and that person wasn't a magus of the fire element, they wouldn't even be able to unleash 10% of their power. However, Nian Bing was different. Through the enormous mental strength contained in the Heaven's Eye acupoint, and through the opened West Meridian acupoint, he had already connected with the surging Xiantian Qi between heaven and earth the moment he rushed into the air. No matter how strong the phoenix spreading wings formation was, it was still possible for there to be a gap that was enough for his mental strength to rush out. Therefore, the moment Nian Bing entered this formation, the final outcome was already decided. 9 huge fire phoenixes, completely condensed from fighting aura, had already sealed off all of Nian Bing's escape routes. At this moment, the 7 divine blades around Nian Bing's body lit up. 7 substantial figures floated in the air as if they were weightless, floating around Nian Bing's body. The blades in their hands emitted a resplendent light. For a moment, the dazzling light actually rushed out from the fire clouds, piercing through heaven and earth. The power of a super divine tool was displayed at this moment. Nian Bing placed one hand on his lower abdomen, and the other hand slanted towards the sky. A golden light flashed between his eyebrows, and a rainbow-colored light emitted from a point. Fusing with the surrounding blade light, it instantly formed a huge rainbow-colored tornado. The tornado, formed by the strong light, spread out in an instant, and in almost the blink of an eye, it had already completely swallowed the 9 huge fire phoenixes. At this moment, the sky above the firewood forest was filled with rainbows. However, it wasn't the 7 colors of the rainbow, but the 7 colors representing ice, fire, earth, wind, space, light, and darkness: blue, red, yellow, green, silver, white, and black. Under the effect of the strong light, the 9 fire phoenixes formed by the phoenix spreading wings formation suddenly changed. Their size almost instantly shrank by half, and their speed slowed down to a third of their original speed. Looking at the blue sky that reappeared in front of his eyes, looking at the red clouds that melted like ice and snow, Nian Bing smiled. The 7 shadow puppets holding the 7 divine blades raised the divine blades in their hands high at the same time. A shout came from Nian Bing's mouth, and Oscar's body emitted a circle of golden gray light. The light directly penetrated the bodies of the 7 shadow puppets, and in the next moment, 7 rays of light soared into the sky. The rays, representing the 7 magical elements, condensed into a rainbow-colored light spot above Nian Bing's head. The light spot seemed to be very small, so small that it was almost undetectable, but it also seemed to be very big, so big that it could encompass heaven and earth. At this moment, Nian Bing was standing on Nian Bing's back. Just like a true god, descending from the heavens to the mortal world, he used his right index finger to point at the 7-colored light spot. His heart suddenly became fiery, and even Yu Ruyin and the others who were far away on the ground seemed to be able to see the faint smile on his face. It was as if what was in front of him was not a formation that could take his life at any time, but a game. Nian Bing's index finger moved slightly, gently pushing up the light spot. Then, the rainbow-colored light shot back to the 7 shadow puppets. Almost everyone could see that 7 light chains descended from the sky and landed directly on the 7 shadow puppets. The 7 Nian Bing puppets, with completely different auras, instantly became illusory. Then, the blades in their hands disappeared at the same time, and at the same time, they merged into their bodies. In the middle of the light that came from the sky, their illusory bodies instantly expanded, and every shadow puppet changed. From the front, it was no longer possible to see their appearance clearly. Although their bodies became bigger, their appearances became more and more blurred. Nian Bing stood on his back with a smile, watching the 9 fire phoenixes that had shrunk to half their original size gradually accelerate towards her, but she did not reveal a trace of worry. The girls in the front were a little confused. When the 9 fire phoenixes' speed suddenly decreased, and that red cloud formed by 9 Leaf Do Chi had been dissolved by the rainbow-colored light, Nian Bing could completely rely on Oscar's speed to rush out. Although this was a bit of a trick, but it could also be considered as breaking out of the formation. After all, to be able to reduce the attack power of 9 fire phoenixes formed by thousands of people by 1-fold, and at the same time reduce their speed greatly, how much strength was required to do this? But why did Nian Bing do that? The only one who truly understood Nian Bing's thoughts was Lan Shen. Lan Shen's eyes were moist. Looking at the 7 expanding light shadows, she no longer cared about anything. At this moment, Her heart only had Nian Bing, who was willing to give up everything for her, and her husband, who was willing to consume a huge amount of magic power for her. In fact, as early as when Nian Bing used Angel's Tears, she already understood that a man who was willing to give up his life for her was worthy of her love. Therefore, she decided to leave the Ice God Tower without hesitation and become Nian Bing's real wife. Although it took a long time to describe, from the time Nian Bing ascended with Oscar to the time when the 7 light shadows expanded, only a few blinks of an eye had passed. At this moment, the 7 light shadows that had expanded to 30 feet had undergone different changes. This time, the changes really made everyone completely stunned. The changes happened almost at the same time. The blue shadow puppet's body changed. It no longer looked like Nian Bing. A long dress made of blue light appeared around its illusory blue body. Although it couldn't be seen clearly, the blue shadow puppet had indeed turned into a woman. A 50-foot-long scepter appeared in her right hand. On her chest, a ball of blue light shone. Facing outward, she raised the long scepter in her hand. The red figure changed. However, it didn't turn into a woman. Instead, it turned into a mighty general. An illusory, fiery red armor appeared on its body. The 30-foot-tall figure clasped its hands together and raised a long blade made of flames. The green figure was also covered in armor. However, it was different from the red figure. Its body was much thinner and smaller. A light wind swirled around its body like a whirlpool. Those wind blade-like leaves were translucent and covered its body. It held a bottle in its hand. The mouth of the bottle was facing outward, as if it was going to pour something out. The yellow figure changed the most. Not only did it turn from a man to a woman, but it also had a long dress like the blue shadow puppet. At the same time, the yellow light around its body turned green. It was a green that was full of vitality. In its hand was a light strip that looked like a willow branch. On the light strip, 7 green willow leaves shone brightly. The silver figure was still a man. However, it didn't have any armor on its body. A silver robe flashed continuously. Its body went through the process of turning from nothing to something. Every time it flashed, the silver light seemed to become brighter. In front of it, a door that hadn't been opened floated. The gorgeous door was also silver. There were countless complex symbols carved on it. However, because all of them were made of energy, they were all illusory. Therefore, no one could see clearly what those symbols were. At this time, the white figure had already turned into a sacred golden color. A beautiful woman with a head of golden hair was wearing a luxurious golden robe. Her body that was 10 meters tall looked so slender. She raised her head to look at the sky and raised a golden long sword in her hand. The sword shone with a dazzling light like the sun. That sacred aura seemed to make the air become sacred. Chapter 204. The last one, the black figure, was so familiar. The black windbreaker, the tall and burly figure, as well as the huge scythe that was 15 meters long, had appeared several times before. The huge scythe was already held up high. The 7 figures had different transformations, but the aura they exuded was the same. There was only one word that could describe the scene in front of them, and that was powerful. Under each of their feet, there was a corresponding 6-pointed star of the same color. The 7 figures, with Nian Bing as the center, raised the weapons in their hands. Although they were all illusory, they seemed so real. Under the protection of these 7 figures, the 7-colored light between Nian Bing's eyebrows seemed to have risen to the limit. A solid white light was emitted from his lower abdomen that was protected by his left hand. When the 7 huge figures were completely formed, the 7-colored light that floated down from the sky disappeared. However, at this moment, everything had developed according to Nian Bing's will. Everyone in front of him was stunned. What was this? What did these 7 figures represent? Some people could recognize one of them. Some could recognize 2 of them. However, as long as they recognized one of them, they would be able to associate it with what the other 6 represented, including Feng Nu, Long Ling, Lan Shun, as well as Halogen and Yu Ruyan. None of them had thought that Nian Bing's strength had reached such a level. Looking at the flowing light in the sky and the 7 figures that were 30 meters tall, They realized that Nian Bing was no longer an ordinary person. It was not an exaggeration to describe him as a god. Nian Bing opened his mouth. His voice was very calm, but it came from the seven figures at the same time. The blue figure chanted, "The sigh of the ice goddess brings the staff of the ice goddess." The red figure chanted, "The roar of the god of fire brings the battle blade of the god of fire." The green figure chanted, "The whisper of the wind of freedom brings the rotation of the Aeolus wind bottle." The green figure chanted, "The melody of the awakening of the earth brings the forgiveness of the goddess of earth." The silver figure chanted, "The six lights of divine armaments bring forth the space god's gate of loss of control." The golden figure chanted, "The dawn that pierces through the heavens and earth brings forth the divine sword of the goddess of light." The black figure chanted, "The curse of eternal hell brings forth the scythe of the god of death." The 9 weakened fire phoenixes had already arrived within 10 feet of the 7 gigantic light figures. However, they suddenly stopped. The 9 gigantic red figures seemed to be trembling in the face of the powerful aura in front of them. No one knew why all of this happened. However, Nian Bing's own voice rang out from the center of the 7 gigantic figures. "Release 7 forbidden, 7 absolutes curse." It was a simple sentence, but it caused the 7 huge figures to move. The woman in the blue dress pointed the ice goddess staff forward. The red warrior slashed out the battle blade of the god of fire in his hand. The green figure's treasure bottle released a pure green wind that seemed to be solidified and spinning at high speed. The 7 leaves on the willow branch in the green figure's hand suddenly separated from the main branch. The silver figure opened the door in front of him. The golden figure's divine sword shot out thousands of scattered lights. The black figure held the scythe that represented the god of death with both hands. Time. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Including the 1,000 elites of the Feng people who appeared in the air, no one could forget what happened in front of them. The phoenix spreading wings formation, which condensed the great fighting energy of the 1,000 elites of the Feng people, completely disappeared when the 7 gigantic figures burst out at the same time. The 9 fire phoenixes didn't even have the chance to struggle in the colorful halo. They turned into little lights and were finally sucked into the silver door. Everything was over, as if nothing had happened. The simple 7 forbidden and 7 deadly curses represented 7 types of forbidden spells that appeared at the same time. Even the main gods on the godly mainland couldn't launch 7 different types of forbidden spells at the same time, but Nian Bing did it. When the 7 forbidden spells burst out at the same time, only Halogen, who was below, felt its true power. The gap between the 11th and 12th level was originally insurmountable. However, when the 7 completely fused forbidden spells burst out at the same time, not only did it reach the 12th level of God's Descent, but it also suddenly rose to the 13th level. At this moment, Halogen no longer doubted that Nian Bing had become a God-level master. She might be the first God-level master among the humans on the Yangon continent. The 9 fire phoenixes completely disappeared. The 1,000 elites of the Feng people all felt their chests tighten at the same time. The 40 strongest Feng people who had royal feathers also had their royal feathers disappear at the same time. Under the guidance of the aura, the 1,000 Feng people floating in the air could no longer control their bodies after using all of their Duki. Feng Su's expression changed. Feng Kong's expression also changed. Their bodies flashed at almost the same time, but their hearts were filled with sorrow. No matter how strong they were, there were only 2 of them. How could they save the 1,000 people falling from the sky at the same time? Just as their hearts sank into despair, a large amount of green light suddenly floated in the air. The green light almost filled the entire sky, enveloping every single one of the Feng people descending from the sky. The green light disappeared, but the first Feng people was still floating in the air. What was that? It was an extremely common third-order levitation spell of the wind element. Even an intermediate mage could easily use it. However, these levitation techniques had now become life-saving treasures. Nian Bing's body also seemed to have turned green. Oscar's wings retracted, and she descended from the sky. Feng Su and Feng Kong were stunned once again. Nian Bing had used over 1,000 levitation spells at the same time. Moreover, she had used 7 forbidden spells at the same time. In their eyes, she really couldn't be called a human anymore. Their hearts trembled. Only when 1,000 clansmen safely landed on the ground did they finally calm down. This simple battle only took half a meal's worth of time, but it had completely changed the Phoenix's view of him. After Feng Ying landed, he turned around and walked towards his home in the Feng clan. He knew he would never be able to challenge a love rival in this life. It was a simple battle, and Yin Bing had won. The price for this victory was that the 1,000 Feng people had used up a large amount of Do Qi. However, the 1,000 Feng people that Yin Bing had attacked at the same time didn't suffer a single injury. Even the youngest and dumbest Feng people could tell that Yin Bing could take their lives with a wave of his hand. However, he didn't do that. When the 9 fire phoenixes disappeared and they fell from the sky, Yin Bing waved his hand, and the 7 giant figures turned back into 7 swords. They merged back into his body. Then, the 1,000 levitation spells that had saved their lives appeared. When Yin Bing landed on the ground, Oscar had already disappeared. Yin Bing's face was slightly pale, but the smile on his face didn't change. He landed right in front of Lan Chun. He opened his arms and hugged the trembling body of Lan Chun. "Chin Chun, I didn't disappoint you. I did it." Lan Chun clung tightly to Yin Bing's chest. "If your 7 forbidden 7 extremes curse couldn't deal with the Phoenix spreading wings formation, what would you have done?" Yin Bing smiled faintly and replied in a relaxed manner, "I don't know. I have 2 choices. One is to use the life curse again, and the other is to explode one of my apertures." He spoke very softly, but everyone around him heard him. The meaning behind these casual words was very heavy. "I understand." Lan Chen's voice was very calm, but she clung to Yin Bing very tightly. The 1,000 Feng people silently retreated. The scorching heat in the air gradually disappeared. The sky became blue again, and the violent magic elements gradually calmed down. Lan Chen hugged Yin Bing's body. She could feel that Yin Bing's weight was almost completely on her body. Yin Bing hugged her in silence, but the Xiantian Qi and magic elements in the air were quickly surging towards his body. The magic he used before not only had high requirements for magic power and external Xiantian Qi, but also had an unprecedented burden on his spiritual energy. He controlled 7 forbidden curses to explode at the same time without injuring a single person. This kind of spiritual control was almost unheard of. Not only did he do it, he also released 1,000 levitation spells at the same time after the 7 forbidden curses ended. He accurately appeared under every Feng people and safely sent them to the ground. Yin Bing's body was already extremely empty at this time. Even so, after landing, he still helped Halogen recover his longevity saber under the cover of others. If it wasn't for the fact that he had just opened the West Meridian Point, which allowed him to rely on a large amount of Xiantian Qi to complete that attack, he definitely wouldn't have the power to instantly reach the 13th level. With Yin Bing's strength, he didn't need to do this if he wanted to break out of the Phoenix spread wings formation. However, he had to do this in order to completely intimidate the Feng people and make them give up on killing Lan Chun. Feng Su and Feng Kong appeared behind Yin Bing. Feng Su's gaze was very complicated. The unfathomable strength of this young man shocked him greatly. He never thought that there would be someone in this world who could deal with the Feng people's Phoenix spread wings formation like this. Yin Bing didn't break out of the formation. Instead, he broke it completely. It wasn't difficult for him to destroy the Feng people. Even if Feng Su and Feng Kong were in charge of the formation, the result wouldn't change at all. More importantly, he didn't hurt any of his people after breaking out of the formation. Yin Bing used his actions to prove that they were indeed here to help the Feng people. Although Feng Su didn't want to admit that this was true, there were still some difficult people. Yin Bing said, "Thank you." Yin Bing let go of Lan Chen's arms. In this short period of time, he had recovered some of his spiritual energy. He didn't show any signs of weakness on the surface. He turned to Feng Su and said, "Elder, there's no need to be so polite. It's fine as long as you still remember our bet. I am indeed an outsider and shouldn't interfere with the Feng people's internal affairs. However, I hope to make some contributions to help the Feng people deal with the upcoming disaster. To be honest, I'm not doing this for the Feng people. I'm doing this for Feng Nu, for Chun Chun, and for my mother." Feng Su sighed and didn't say anything else. He turned and walked into the depths of the firewood forest. Feng Kong said, "Come, follow me." Yu Rian walked to Nian Bing's side and held his hand. A warm and mellow do qi entered Nian Bing's body, nourishing his meridians. Nian Bing smiled and nodded to Yu Rian, indicating that she was fine. Only then did everyone follow the two elders to the Feng people's true habitat. When they passed through a dense forest, the giant volcano finally appeared before them. In fact, when they were breaking the formation, Nian Bing had already seen the existence of this volcano from the sky. Now, it seemed even more real. Looking from the bottom, the volcano was at least 10,000 feet tall. However, there were no clouds around the peak, so they could clearly see the mountaintop that seemed to have been shaved off by a knife. The trees in the forest changed from many types to one type. A large forest of parasol trees appeared before everyone's eyes. In the forest, there was a 10 feet wide path paved with stones that extended into the forest. The temperature here was clearly higher than in the forest. The warm air nourished Nian Bing and the others' bodies. Yu Ruyan's eyes moistened. After so many years, she finally returned to her hometown. They walked along the stone path, and after the time it took to eat a meal, a simple village appeared in front of them. There were a few farms around the village, and some Feng clansmen were working hard. The wooden houses in the village looked very neat and orderly. Thousands of wooden houses surrounded the foot of the volcano. Under the lead of Feng Su and Feng Kong, everyone walked into the village. Everywhere they passed, the Feng clansmen respectfully bowed to the two elders. At the same time, they looked at Nian Bing and the others curiously. "Ah, isn't this Feng Nu? Girl, you're back." An old voice sounded. An old Feng people greeted Feng Nu in front of his house. Feng Nu hurried forward and said respectfully, "Grandpa Song, how are you? Long time no see. You're still so hale and hearty." The old man chuckled. "I can't take it anymore. I'm old. Girl, I haven't seen you for a long time. Grandpa really missed you. Why, did you finish your training outside? Or did you come back specially to attend the ceremony? Since you're back, why don't you stay for a while? While you were gone, I often heard little Eagle Xing talking about you. He's so beautiful now. You're not young anymore. The wedding should be held soon." Feng Nu looked a little embarrassed. Just as she didn't know how to answer, Yu Ruyan came to her side. "Uncle Do you still recognize me?" Her voice was a little trembling. She went forward and held the old man's hand. Feng Du's old yellow eyes carefully looked at Yu Ruyan's excited face. He revealed a thoughtful expression. Suddenly, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. "Ah, you're little Yin?" "It's me, Uncle Song." Tears flowed down Yu Ruyan's cheeks. Seeing her clansmen again, seeing this uncle who had looked after her for so long, her heart trembled. Intense emotions gushed forth unceasingly as she held the old man's hand tightly. Feng Song was so excited that his body trembled. "Little Yin, it's actually little Yin who came back. I heard from Feng Kong that you were already dead. Little girl, you really did cause a lot of trouble back then." Zhao Rian said with tears in her eyes, "No, I'm not dead. Uncle Song, Feng Du smiled. "All right, it's good that you're back. Let bygones be bygones. Who's right or wrong? Feng Su, Feng Kong, you're not allowed to help little Yin. Do you hear me?" Feng Su's expression was still a little gloomy. He said, "Big brother, don't worry. We won't make things difficult for her. Rest well and take care of yourself." Feng Song patted Urian's hand and said, "All right, you can go now. Just come and visit this old man when you're free." While they were talking, Feng Nu whispered to Nian Bing that among the 5 elders of the Feng people back then, Feng Du's father was the eldest of the 5 elders. Ruyan's father, who was also her grandfather, was the leader. Elder Feng Song was second in line, followed by Feng Su, Feng Kong, and another elder. During a battle with an enemy, the 5th elder died. The fifth elder had passed away, and Elder Feng Song was also seriously injured. Although he managed to survive, he was still alive. Although he managed to survive, he lost the doqi he had cultivated for many years. That was why he looked so frail. Even so, Elder Feng Song had a very high status among the Feng people. He insisted on not being an elder anymore. So Feng Su and Feng Kong were promoted to second and third in honor of Yu Ruyan's deceased father. He kept his position as the first elder. After bidding farewell to Feng Song, everyone followed Feng Su and Feng Kong to a large house in the middle of the Feng people's village. This was where the Feng people discussed matters. The layout of the wooden house was very simple. There were 10 zhang long rattan chairs on both sides. There were 2 chairs in the center. Feng Su and Feng Kong walked to the innermost part and sat down. At the same time, they gestured for Nian Bing and the others to sit. Feng Su's expression calmed a little. He looked at Nian Bing, Yu Ruyan, and the others. The Phoenix Nirvana ceremony is the most important event of our clan. The Feng people have passed on for so many years, but this is the first time that outsiders are participating. Since you insist on protecting the Ice Phoenix, then what do you suggest? Yu Ruyan said, Elder Feng Su, according to what Nian Bing said, this Phoenix Nirvana ceremony is likely to cause the Phoenix True Fire in the Phoenix volcano to erupt because of Qinchin's Ice Phoenix constitution. Just like Nian Bing said, let our clansmen retreat from the Wudong forest temporarily and return after the ceremony. Before returning, I thought about it carefully. The appearance of the Ice Phoenix and the rise of the Phoenix are recorded in our clan's ancient records as signs of the Phoenix True Fire's eruption. However, no one knows whether this is good or bad. You're now the chief elder of our clan. Then, can we carefully check the records in our clan's ancient records? Perhaps we can find some clues? Feng Su shook his head. As an elder of the Feng people, I've already memorized our clan's ancient records. There are only records of the Ice Phoenix's 6 words. That's why I insisted on following the clan's rules. I have to admit that we don't have the ability to follow the clan's rules. Facing the upcoming ceremony, all we can do now is to do our best to prevent the Phoenix volcano's eruption from damaging our home. According to our clan's ancient records, the Phoenix volcano represents the rise and fall of the Feng people. Our ancestor, the Great Phoenix, died in this volcano. Therefore, this is the only sacrifice of the Feng people. It can never be changed. If this eruption destroys the entire forest, then it represents the extinction of the Feng people. His words were very heavy. Everyone present could hear the righteousness in his words. Although this elder had lost the bet, he was unwilling to face the Phoenix True Fire. Yu Ruyan firmly said, since that's the case, please don't worry. Unless Feng Yin dies, we won't let the Phoenix True Fire damage our home for thousands of years. Feng Su sighed. If you can help our clan safely pass the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony this time, then I can make an exception and let you, Feng Nu, and even your other daughter return to the Feng people. However, you have to understand that if you fail, you will become the sinners of the Feng people. Yin, it's not too late to change your mind. For the survival of the Feng people, sacrifice is the best choice. Yu Ruyan smiled. She first looked at Nian Bing. Elder, if Feng Yin had never left the Feng people, perhaps she would have made that choice. However, after living outside for so many years, there is nothing more important than family to me. Moreover, as the saying goes, a married woman follows her husband. Qinchin and Feng are already Nian Bing's wives. Even if I agree, will he agree? The 2 elders' gazes landed on Nian Bing. They didn't need Nian Bing to answer. They naturally knew the answer. From Nian Bing's 7 forbidden weapon absolute curse, they knew that it was impossible to kill Lan Shun. Moreover, Nian Bing had already shown them enough mercy. If she insisted on killing Lan Shun, the Feng people would probably be destroyed by this unfathomable dragon magician before the Phoenix True Fire appeared. Moreover, Yu Ruyan, who could be called the Feng people's #1 expert, and the Feng people's hope, Feng Nu, were also present. Nian Bing said, I'm afraid that you have never seen the Phoenix True Fire before. Since the Phoenix True Fire has never appeared before, then we should try. We'll have to try. As long as I'm here, I won't allow anyone to hurt my wife. Just like how the survival of the Feng people is the most important thing to you two elders, my wife is also the most important thing to me. Feng Su nodded. For the first time, he felt that he had no choice but to make this decision. There are still 20 days until the Phoenix volcano erupts. At that time, I'll stake my old life and give a try with you guys. Feng Kong, 10 days later. Let our people out of the firewood forest and wait for my news. If the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony is successfully completed, you can bring our people back. Otherwise, we can only find another place for our people to stay. The future of the Feng people is in your hands. Feng Kong said anxiously. Second brother, how can this be? As an elder of the Feng people, how can I not participate in the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony? I want to stay and participate in this ceremony with you. Feng Su said angrily. Nonsense. The future of the Feng people is the most important thing. If we don't have an elder to lead us, then our people will only fall apart. Feng Kong, can't you tell what's important and what's not? This is your fate. As a chief elder of our clan, this is the fate I give you. Feng Kong looked at Feng Su in a daze. Feng Su also looked at him. They had been brothers for many years, so how could he not understand his second brother's meaning? A bitter smile appeared on his face as he said with great difficulty, Yes, Feng Kong obeys. Second brother, I believe that everything will succeed. The heavens won't let the Feng people decline like this. Seeing the heavy expressions of Urian, Feng Nu, and the Feng people, Nian Bing deeply felt how heavy his responsibility was. He didn't say anything else. He could only prove everything with his actions. Nian Bing and the others were arranged to live in the village of the Feng people. Strangely, during the 20 days of waiting, Nian Bing didn't get intimate with any of his wives. They even spent less time seeing each other. He and Dao Yun lived in the same room and spent 4 hours a day cultivating. What could they do in a short 20 days? Nian Bing didn't know either, but he knew that every bit of strength he gained would give him more control when he faced the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. 20 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lan Shun sat cross-legged on her bed in silence and meditated. Since 7 days ago, her body had a strange feeling. The ice magic in her body seemed to be boiling and would often fluctuate unstably. The aura in her body also became very unstable, and all kinds of emotions appeared for no reason. Feng Nu lived in the same room as her. Every time something happened to Lan Chen's body, she would immediately help her sister calm down. Feng Nu found out. Lan Chen's ice magic seemed to be different from before. There seemed to be something more, but she couldn't explain what it was. 20 days had passed. According to the records of the Feng people, today was the day of the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. 10 days ago, Feng Kong took all the people of the Feng people and left the village where the Feng people lived for countless years. Before Feng Kong left, he held Urian's hand tightly. Although he didn't say anything, how could Urian not understand what he meant? This was the home country of the Feng people. After leaving this habitat full of pure fire elements, the Feng people would no longer have powerful warriors. The Phoenix Nirvana ceremony this time, as the two elders said, would determine the life and death of the Feng people. Urian had already prepared everything. She knew what she had to do. The Phoenix tree forest became very quiet. It was as if all the creatures in the forest had disappeared into thin air. The earth trembled slightly. The fire elements in the air became twice as violent as usual. Nian Bing and Dao Lan walked out of the room together. The two smiled at each other. They both knew that they were about to face the eruption of the Phoenix volcano in the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. Although it was Nian Bing's first time experiencing a volcano eruption, Dao Lan didn't know how many times he had experienced it. In the environment of the godly mainland, there would be a volcano eruption every once in a while. He couldn't be more familiar with this kind of natural disaster. Urian, Feng Nu, Long Ling, and Lan Shen also walked out of the room with Feng Su. Everyone gathered together. Feng Su's expression was very serious. He looked at the Phoenix volcano that was a few hundred meters away from the Feng people's village. He said in a low voice, "It's time. Let's go." The eruption of the Phoenix volcano will bring out Phoenix flames and large amounts of lava. What we need to do is to suppress the lava and keep it inside the volcano until it calms down. Our clan's 9 abandonment battle energy cultivates the phoenix flames under the circumstances of a reward. As long as the Phoenix clansmen who participated in the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony were strong enough to suppress the volcanic eruption, not only would they not be harmed, but their cultivation would also increase due to the dense Phoenix flames. Speaking of this, he subconsciously glanced at Lanshan and said, "However, today's guessing situation is different. What kind of situation will appear is completely unknown, so please be careful. Come with me." After speaking, he flashed and rushed towards the Phoenix volcano like lightning. Feng Nu, Yu Ruyan, and Lanshan respectively activated their royal feathers. Long Ling used Blizzard, Nian Bing, and Dao Lan jumped up at the same time. The group of 7 rushed towards the Phoenix volcano at full speed. From the surface, the Phoenix volcano looked like an ordinary mountain, except that there were no living things on it. As soon as they stepped on the mountain, everyone could clearly feel a scorching heat coming from the mountain. The heat was surging, and the surrounding air seemed to have become slightly distorted. However, this heat didn't have much effect on them. Nian Bing gave the sigh of the snow goddess to Long Ling, while she guarded Bingyun. Relying on the cold air from the morning dew dagger, Long Ling received a very small amount of heat, and Nian Bing used her heavenly eye domain to help Bingyun disperse the surrounding heat. 20 days ago, even the 9 fire phoenixes formed by the powerful Phoenix Wings formation were weakened by half by Nian Bing's heavenly eye domain. This kind of heat was really not enough to threaten them. Everyone was a powerhouse among humans. 1,000 zhang tall mountain might not be possible for ordinary people in a day, but for them, it couldn't be more simple. In a quarter of an hour, they had already reached the peak from the foot of the mountain. Surrounded by the volcano, a huge amount of fire energy continuously flowed from the peak. When they reached the peak, Nian Bing immediately discovered that the peak of this huge volcano was surprisingly similar to the Lake of Death on Green Mountain. However, there was no lake water here, but an inverted cone-shaped pit. The deepest part of the pit was about 100 zhang deep. Around this cone-shaped pit, there were a total of 5 huge golden diagrams. Those were the diagrams of 5 phoenixes, but their postures were different. At this moment, the 5 diagrams were already emitting a faint golden light, and in the deepest part of the cone-shaped pit, plumes of thick smoke were continuously rising. Chapter 205. The surrounding rocks were boiling hot, and the distortion in the air was becoming more obvious. Waves of heat continued to spread from the center of the volcano. Feng Su said, "Those 5 golden phoenixes are seals left behind by our ancestors. When we inject our 9-leaf battle chi into them, we can activate their sealing power and restrain the volcano. When the ceremony starts, we will each control 2 seals, and Feng Nu will control 1. Nian Bing, you'll do as you please. Just remember to keep the eruption within the volcano and not let it out. The volcano's eruption is the fiercest in its initial stages. As long as we can hold on for a while, it will be easier to deal with. However, today's transformation may be different." Nian Bing nodded. "I understand. Elder, don't worry. We will do our best. Brother Halogen, you protect Ling, and I will protect Qinshin." Yu Ruyan said, "Elder Feng Su, you only need to control 1 seal. Feng Nu and I will each control 2. 5 seals should be controlled by 5 elders." Feng Su was stunned. "How can that be? In the past few years, my 9 Phoenix transformations finally made a breakthrough and reached the 4th transformation. Although controlling 2 seals is a bit difficult, it should be possible." Feng Nu said, "Elder, as Mother said, let me control 2 seals. Don't worry, I am confident I can do it. I have already reached the 6th of the 9 Phoenix transformations, Phoenix transformation." "What?" Feng Su was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. When Feng Nu left the Feng people hadn't discovered the special cultivation method of the first 2 transformations. At that time, Feng Nu could barely use the 2nd transformation, Royal Feather. But now, she was telling him that she could already use the 6th transformation. How is this possible? In the history of the Feng people, no one had improved so quickly. Of course, he didn't know. Under the effects of the angel's tear that Nian Bing had sacrificed his life to cast, the Phoenix girl had undergone a complete transformation. Furthermore, her Tian Yin acupoint had been opened. This allowed her cultivation speed to reach a whole new level. In a year and a half, her strength had made a qualitative leap. Even Yu Ruyin was no match for Feng Nu, who had the Tian Yin acupoint. Among the 3 Feng people present, Feng Nu was the strongest. Among the 7 people present, Feng Su was the weakest. Even Long Ling had reached the level of an ice archmage. Moreover, with her Tian Yin acupoint, she was definitely stronger than Feng Su. Feng Su looked at Feng Nu doubtfully and said, "Okay, let's start now." He also wanted to see if Feng Nu's 6th transformation was real or fake. If Feng Nu really did reach the 6th transformation, then, even though there were only 3 of them here today, the strength of their 9 abandonment battle aura was probably stronger than that of the 5 elders who had reached the 3rd transformation. Feng Su's expression became abnormally serious as he felt the heat and vibrations from the Phoenix volcano grow stronger and stronger. He bit his right middle finger, and with the golden 9-leaf battle energy wrapped around it, he flew out like lightning toward the golden phoenix symbol closest to him. At the same time, Yu Ruyin and Phoenix Girl bit their own middle fingers at the same time. They each shot out 2 drops of blood towards the other 4 phoenix symbols. They were once the hope of the Feng people. Naturally, they knew what to do at the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. 5 drops of blood landed on the 5 phoenix symbols almost at the same time. A strange scene appeared. Under the stimulation of the Phoenix royal bloodline, the 5 golden phoenix symbols seemed to come alive. In a flash of golden light, the 5 phoenixes turned into countless golden figures and soared into the sky. More than half of the heat in the air was absorbed by the 5 golden phoenixes, causing the air to become cooler. However, just as everyone felt the seal left behind by the Feng people begin to take effect, the Phoenix volcano under their feet shook violently, and a surge of fire energy surged out. With a loud boom, accompanied by countless rocks and dust, a fiery red light shot up from the center of the Phoenix volcano. In the blink of an eye, it rose to a height of more than 100 feet. The surrounding air became completely distorted, and the scorching heat rose to the extreme. Even with the protection of the morning dew dagger, Long Ling's face turned pale. Only with the protection of Halogen's black battle aura did she stabilize her body. Nian Bing opened her heavenly eye domain, enveloping herself and Lan Shun. The power of the domain was extremely useful. It greatly weakened the expansion of the fire element. The 5 golden phoenixes that had just ascended were immediately scattered to the sides by the sudden eruption of the volcano. At this time, the 5 golden phoenixes also began to play their role. Golden flames spread out in all directions, condensing into a huge light shield, completely enveloping the erupting lava, gravel, and dust, preventing it from spreading outwards. Royal bloodline feather. Feng Su shouted, and a pair of fiery red wings floated out from his back, carrying him into the sky. 2 surging golden flames were injected into the golden light pillar in the center, merging with the golden phoenixes that he had activated with his royal bloodline. At the same time, Feng Nu and Yu Ruyin did the same, but the flames from each of their hands merged into a golden phoenix. The 5 golden phoenixes that were shaken by the eruption of the volcano regained their luster under the combined efforts of the 3. They forcefully prevented the eruption of the volcano from spreading outwards. The volcano trembled even more violently, each eruption stronger than the last. Feng Nu and the other 2 also entered the 3rd transformation from royal bloodline feather to illusory phoenix demon body. The 3 illusory golden red figures flapped the wings on their backs to control their bodies. It was obvious how much pressure they were under from the constant changes in their figures. Feng Nu and her mother looked at each other, and their minds were connected. The 3 Feng people who had reached illusory phoenix demon body weren't enough to control the 5 golden phoenixes to the best effect, so they chose to continue transforming without hesitation. 6 illusory figures appeared out of thin air, and as they materialized, the phoenix flames injected into the golden phoenixes suddenly became several times stronger. The surging golden light completely suppressed the eruption of the volcano, and the 5 golden phoenixes circled in the air as if they were alive, preventing the scorching airflow in the air from leaking out. The Phoenix Nirvana ceremony truly began at this moment. 2 of the 4 transformations, one of the 3 transformations, fully unleashed the power of the Phoenix seal. Feng Su only felt the pressure on him decrease greatly. The 3 of them all secretly heaved a sigh of relief as they continued to increase the seal's power. Nian Bing and the other 3 stood at the edge of the volcano and watched. After the seal was fully activated, the heat in the air decreased significantly. Although the eruption of the volcano continued to increase in power, it clearly wasn't easy to break through the seal. Nian Bing focused her spiritual power and prepared to be ready to fight. On the other side, Long Ling had already started chanting an incantation, and Halogen had also taken out his god-slaying battle axe. If this was the previous Phoenix submarine ceremony, Feng Nu and the other 2 would only need to hold on like this. When the eruption of the volcano gradually stopped, it would be completed successfully. However, the eruption this time was indeed different from the past. The Feng people's records weren't wrong. Just as they took control of the situation, Lan Shun, who was standing beside Nian Bing, began to change. Lan Shun could clearly feel her body becoming abnormally hot. This heat wasn't caused by the heat from the outside world. Instead, it was constantly being emitted from inside her body. The ice magic in her body didn't decrease. Instead, it seemed to be increasing in power. However, the burning sensation became more and more intense, as if it was going to burn her entire body. She gritted her teeth and endured the pain, but the heat in her body had already begun to spread outwards. Nian Bing had been holding Lan Chen's hand all this time. The change in Lan Chen's body immediately attracted his attention. Originally, Lan Chen's little hand was always ice cold, but he was surprised to find that her little hand, which should have been ice cold, was now boiling hot. Shocked, he turned his head to look at Lan Chen. Just as he was about to ask, he saw Lan Chen's painful expression. Then, blue wings spread out from Lan Chen's back. She let out a scream of pain, and her body involuntarily soared into the sky. Nian Bing jumped in fright. He hurriedly cast a wind magic spell on himself and chased after Lan Chen. However, at that moment, Lan Chen's body underwent 3 changes in succession. All 3 changes were completed in an instant. Each change strengthened her phoenix form, evolving from royal feather to phoenix flapping wings of 5 colors. The 3 blue figures all turned into 5 colors at the same time. Lan Chen let out another scream of pain, and the 3 figures flew in 3 different directions. The wildly surging 5-colored light moved rapidly. Each time it moved, it brought with it a powerful aura. Feng Su, who was flying in the air, was still trying his best to control the golden phoenix seal. He couldn't stop Lan Chen at all. However, when he saw Lan Chen go through the 3 parts of the phoenix shadow and the 5 colors of the phoenix flapping its wings, he felt a strong sense of unease. He yelled, "Quick, stop her!" Without needing Feng Su's order, Nian Bing reacted quickly. He pounced at Lan Chen, who was in the center. At the same time, 4 shadow puppets appeared from his body. The wind shadow puppet and the black shadow puppet went after Lan Chen on the left, while the space shadow puppet and the light shadow puppet went after Lan Chen on the right. At this critical moment, Nian Bing fully activated his Heaven's Eye domain. He and the 4 shadow puppets all reached the limit of their speed. However, Lan Chen, who had entered the 5th Phoenix transformation, also reached the limit of her speed. After the 3 figures split up, she instantly pounced at the golden phoenix seal in the center. She seemed to be struggling, but it seemed like she couldn't control herself. There was only a short distance from the edge of the volcano to the center. Just as she was about to charge into the golden seal, Nian Bing and the 4 shadow puppets finally arrived in time and blocked Lan Chen's path. Seeing Lan Chen's current state, Nian Bing couldn't help but jump in fright. Lan Chen's eyes had turned completely ice blue. They were filled with pain. Seeing that Nian Bing was blocking her, she actually raised her hands and released a wave of 5-colored light towards Nian Bing and the 4 shadow puppets. Nian Bing knew that only one of the 3 Lan Chens was real. However, under the effect of the Phoenix Shadow's 3 parts, he simply couldn't distinguish which one was real and which one was fake. Nian Bing's rich combat experience was of great help to him. Without any hesitation, he and the 4 shadow puppets immediately pounced forward. The first ones to display their effects were the Space Shadow Puppet and the Light Shadow Puppet. Under the effect of Nian Bing's enormous spiritual power, he divided his will into 5 parts, separately controlling his own body and the 4 shadow puppets. Pure and holy light essence surged out, enveloping Lan Chen's body. That was completely a high-level healing technique, removing the 5-colored light emitted by Lan Chen. Just as Lan Chen's charging figure slowed down slightly, the Space Shadow Puppet's whole body emitted a bright silver light. With a spatial transmission, it had already sent Lan Chen to the edge of the volcano. At this time, the power of this Lan Chen's attack was completely displayed. However, she was already far away from the central ceiling volcano's light pillar. And Nian Bing himself and the 2 shadow puppets, Wind and Earth, didn't stay idle either. Nian Bing's method was very simple. He ignored the high temperature of the 5-colored light flame and directly pounced forward, embracing Lan Chen in front of him. Of course, he definitely didn't act rashly. Although the Sky's Eye domain didn't have any offensive effects, it was extremely powerful in terms of defense, amplification, and weakening. Especially after Nian Bing's Sky's Eye acupoint reached the ultimate realm, his Sky's Eye domain had already reached a whole new level. 20 days ago, it was precisely because of the Sky's Eye domain that he was able to first greatly weaken the attack of the Phoenix Spreading Wings formation, and then through amplification, complete the 13 level 7 Forbidden 7 Seals curse. Under the effect of the Sky's Eye domain, when Nian Bing hugged Lan Chen's body, her attack was also imprinted on Nian Bing's chest. Nian Bing let out a muffled groan. The 7-colored radiance of the Sky's Eye domain moved at the same time, reducing the fire element attached to the attack to a minimum when it was attacked. Lan Chen wasn't a warrior, but a magician. Her 2 palms naturally wouldn't cause any harm to Nian Bing. Carrying her body, Nian Bing suddenly accelerated, following closely behind the Space Shadow Puppet and the Light Shadow Puppet back to the edge of the volcano. The Earth and Black Shadow Puppets were also very direct. As the strongest of the Shadow Puppets, Emperor Kurobutsu's mind was already connected to Nian Bing's. Although Lan Chen had already used the 5th transformation of the 9 Phoenix transformations, how could she be a match for Emperor Kurobutsu? The demon-devouring blade drew an arc in the air, instantly creating a black hole that swallowed the surging 5-colored flames. In the next moment, the Wind Shadow Puppet had already created a green tornado that swept Lan Chen's body and sent her flying in the direction of Nian Bing. Although all of this happened in a short moment, Nian Bing had already used all of her strength, and all of the shadow puppets unleashed their strongest abilities to stop the 5 transformations Lan Chen. At this moment, he only had one thought, and that was to listen to Feng Su and stop the 3 figures of Lan Chen from approaching the seal in the center before the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony was completed. But would it really go so smoothly? The 3 figures of Lan Chen that were brought back to the edge of the volcano by Nian Bing and the shadow puppets all paused at the same time. However, the 3 figures suddenly became more illusory, and only the 3 pairs of blue eyes remained as real as ever. Loud Phoenix cries sounded from the 3 figures at the same time, and light instantly shone brightly. Nian Bing only felt the figure in her arms disappear, and Lan Chen turned into a blue light and rose into the air. She watched as the 3 figures merged into one. The multicolored light instantly shone brightly, forming a huge phoenix that rose into the air. The phoenix's eyes were ice blue, and its huge wings spanned a space of 10 zhang. The multicolored body on the cushion of air instantly increased in size. The multicolored light emitted by the multicolored flames was actually not any weaker than the seal formed by the 5 golden phoenixes. Feng Nu and Urian were shocked to see launch and break through the bottleneck and reach the 6th transformation. Their faces immediately turned pale with fright. An increase in one's strength was a good thing, but in this situation, it seemed that Lan Chen's body had a big problem. Her increase in strength would only increase the problem. Without any hesitation, Feng Nu and Urian moved at the same time. The 3 figures of Urian lit up with 5-colored light at the same time and instantly climbed to the 5th transformation of the Phoenix 9 transformations. The 3 figures of Feng Nu instantly merged together and directly skipped the 5th transformation. Relying on the control of her Tian Yin acupoint, another huge phoenix appeared in the air. However, the phoenix that Feng Nu transformed into had completely red eyes that were as clear as rubies. Next was Feng Nu's transformation. After the 5th transformation, Urian's 3 figures also merged together and entered the 6th transformation. Another huge phoenix appeared in the air, this time formed by Urian. Its eyes were emerald green, and the 3 huge phoenixes floated in the air. Because they had entered the 6th transformation, Feng Nu and Urian's strength instantly increased greatly. However, Urian herself was the only one who was able to control the seal. He easily cooperated with Elder Feng Su to control the seal that resisted the volcanic eruption. Phoenix Girl circled in the air and faced Lan Shun from below. Nian Bing also rose into the air at this moment, and the shadow puppets were completely retracted. A gray light condensed below him, and Oscar's huge body appeared out of thin air. He spread his dragon wings and brought Nian Bing 1 step ahead of Feng Nu to block in front of Lan Shun. Although they were both in the 6th transformation, the 5-colored phoenix that Lan Shun transformed into was twice the size of Feng Nu and Urian. His huge body was even larger than Oscar's, and he floated in the air. He didn't rush directly into the light pillar from the eruption as everyone was worried about. Instead, he floated there in silence. The 5-colored halo on his body fluctuated in waves, and his blue eyes flickered with a struggling light. However, Lan Shun still couldn't control his body. Feng Nu flew to Nian Bing's side, and they didn't move either. With every minute that passed, they were more confident that they could complete the Phoenix Nirvana ceremony. At this moment, the eruption of the volcano was starting to weaken. At this moment, a blue light barrier covered Lan Chen's body from behind. That was clearly the aura of ice. Although the light barrier wasn't strong, it still caused the flames around Lan Chen's body to shrink. That was a magic from Long Ling was afraid of hurting Lan Chen. So when she used the Sigh of the Snow Goddess as her magic staff to activate this magic, she used an ice element sealing technique. But just as Long Ling's magic was about to take effect, a strange scene occurred. The flames that were clearly burning around Lan Chen's body actually swallowed up the ice element sealing technique in an instant, and an enormous and scorching energy continued to rise. However, that scorching heat wasn't the same as ordinary flames. It seemed to be an ice-cold heat. The 2 completely opposite feelings made Feng Nu and Nian Bing feel that something was wrong. At this moment, the 5-colored flames around Lan Chen's body started to change, and the 5-colored radiance started to develop into a pure color. The ground below Lan Chen suddenly split open without any warning, and a surge of magma soared into the sky, merging with Lan Chen's body from below. Immediately after, the 5-colored flames around Lan Chen's body changed in a flash, turning into a blue color like her eyes. The magma was completely absorbed by her body, and the blue flames gently drifted. The blue phoenix suddenly appeared very moving. Feng Nu cried out involuntarily, the 7th transformation of the Phoenix's 9 transformations, true Phoenix body. No, this is Yin fire. Before Feng Nu and Nian Bing could come over, Lan Shun had already spat out a mouthful of blue flames. The flames didn't come from Nian Bing and Feng Nu, but directly onto the ground. Nian Bing quickly understood the meaning of this Yin fire. On the surface, there wasn't any scorching aura, nor was there any loud noise, but the rocks on the ground instantly disintegrated. The moment the vaporized rocks disappeared, another surge of magma erupted. Perhaps it was because of the flames, but the entire Phoenix volcano started to shake violently. The eruption of the volcano that Yuruyan and Feng Su had been suppressing suddenly increased tenfold. The mouth of the volcano suddenly expanded outward, and fiery red lava continued to spread. The 5 golden phoenixes disappeared under the violent impact. Yuruyan's 5-colored phoenix form flashed in the air and caught Feng Su, instantly leaving the volcano's crater. At this point, the volcano's eruption was no longer under their control. Immediately afterward, in the cone-shaped crater of the volcano, magma erupted one after another. The holes gradually connected together, and in just a few breaths of time, the entire volcano had completely erupted. The huge pillar of fire spewed scorching flames into the sky hundreds of times larger than before. The entire sky was dyed red because of the scorching flames. Halogen immediately brought Long Ling down the mountain. In such an intense heat, there were no other elements in the air besides the fire element. Thus, Long Ling couldn't fly and could only retreat under Halogen's lead. The magma spewing out of the volcano was speckled with golden light. Even Nian Bing and Oscar couldn't withstand the immense heat. Although the eye of the sky was powerful, they could only retreat in the face of such a violent roar of nature. Oscar spread his wings and brought Nian Bing out of the volcano's range in an instant. Feng Nu and Yuruyan left one after the other. However, when everyone left the crater, they were shocked to find that Lan Chen's body had been swallowed by the magma. Yuruyan and Nian Bing cried out at the same time. Nian Bing leaped up and wanted to jump into the volcano, but found that there was no wind or ice element in the air that could allow her to fly. Oscar caught her again. No matter what Nian Bing said, he refused to take her into the erupting magma. He wasn't doing this for himself. At the same time, he was doing this to protect Nian Bing. Nian Bing kept hearing Oscar's comforting words in her heart, but how could she listen at this moment? Lan Shan had been completely swallowed by the magma. It was as if it had swallowed his heart, causing him to fall into an abyss of pain. He screamed crazily, wanting to summon his shadow puppets to take him into the scorching magma. However, at this moment, all the shadow puppets rejected his request. As the soul of a super divine weapon, they all had their own consciousness. How could they watch their master die in vain? Nian Bing's heart shattered. His heart shattered amidst the agitation. However, he couldn't move, but that didn't mean that Feng Nu and Yuruyan couldn't move. A strange scene happened. Feng Nu and Yuruyan's phoenixes turned from 5 colors to a pure red. If it was any other time, perhaps they would be very excited to find out that they had entered the 7th transformation of the Phoenix 9 transformations. However, at this time, they no longer cared about their own strength. Although the Feng people were of the fire attribute, even their bodies couldn't withstand the high temperature of the magma. Yuruyan rushed out first, heading straight for the magma, but Feng Nu rushed to the vicinity of the volcano before Yuruyan. She suddenly turned around, and a scorching red stream of air gushed out, forcibly stopping Yuruyan's attack. "Mom, let me go." Without waiting for Yuruyan to react, the fiery red phoenix that Feng Nu had transformed and had already rushed into the crazily surging magma. Yuruyan's body was forcefully jolted back. When she wanted to rush forward again, a gray barrier blocked her way. Although Oscar brought Nian Bing and flew at their fastest speed, they could only stop Yuruyan. At this time, Feng Nu had already disappeared. Tears flowed down Nian Bing's face. "Mom, don't." His heart seemed to shatter in an instant. Both of his wives had rushed into the hellish sea of fire. In fact, how could he not want to rush in? But at this moment, he had no choice but to stop the impulsive Yuruyan first. Nian Bing regretted. She regretted promising Feng Nu to come back. Why did she bring Lan Shan all the way back to the Feng people? If she didn't come to the Feng people, how could she face such a sudden change? Nian Bing realized that she was actually so powerless in the face of the roar of nature. The volcano in front of her had completely erupted, causing all the magic elements in the vicinity to disappear except for the fire element, forming a magic vacuum. No matter how strong her spiritual power was, without the magic elements that she could control, how could she rush in? The golden flames were filled with an abnormally hot air current. Could this be the so-called true phoenix fire? At the same time, Nian Bing also knew that Oscar and the shadow puppets were right. Although she also had fire magic and a strong body, once she rushed into the surging lava, there was no way she could survive. That was why she wanted to leave Oscar and rush into the mouth of the volcano alone. At this moment, Feng Su was silent as he watched the volcano erupt 1,000 feet away. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he muttered, "Strange, so strange." His body was already emitting a multicolored light, and the illusory figure turned from 1 to 3. In a short moment, when the volcano completely erupted, he clearly felt that the 9-leaf do qi in his body seemed to have been ignited and instantly reached an unprecedented adjustment. It actually directly jumped 2 levels from the 3rd transformation directly to the 5th transformation. This was something he didn't even dare to think about before. Yu Ruyan said sternly, "Nian Bing, get out of the way. I want to go in and save my daughters. Don't worry about me. If anything happens to them, what's the point of me living?" Nian Bing stared blankly at Yu Ruyan. Suddenly, his gaze became determined. He nodded and said, "Okay, Mom, then bring me in." Although he knew that he was going to die, he definitely wouldn't back down when his 2 wives were in danger. Oscar didn't want to go in with him. His energy body could actually be maintained outside, but he couldn't form a corpse, just like an undead. However, his soul had already merged with this energy body. As long as he continued to cultivate, when the Dragon God's Heart Sutra reached a certain level, he might be able to form a physical body again. It was just that cultivating on his own would be slower than cultivating in his own body. At this point, he couldn't care so much anymore. If they couldn't live together, they could die together. This was Nian Bing's only thought. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate anymore. Hearing Nian Bing's words, Yu Ruyan was also stunned. Just as she didn't know what to do, Feng Su's voice suddenly sounded. "Wait, don't be rash." 3 Feng Zus flew in front of Nian Bing and Yu Ruyan. The 3 figures merged into one, becoming the chief elder of the Feng people. Feng Su said, "Don't be rash. Listen to me first. Feng Nu and Lan Chen might not be in danger. Maybe it's not a bad thing for them to be in the lava. Instead, it might be a good thing." Yu Ruyan asked anxiously, "Elder, tell us quickly, is there any record of this in our Feng people's records?" Feng Su shook his head. "No, there's no record of this in our records. However, didn't you notice the problem? Feel it. This is the first time such a strong eruption has occurred. We're very close to the crater, but the temperature isn't much higher than before. Also, didn't you notice that the lava isn't flowing out of the volcano, nor is it falling from the sky?